Stepdaughter says she hates me and wished I'd get COVID so I wouldn't be around anymore. So I have a stepdaughter who is 14. I've been with her mother since she was 4, she doesn't see her biological father at all, his choice, and he has played no role in her life. I'm the only father figure she's really had other than her grandfather. We used to be fairly close, up until she was around 12 or so, and then it was like someone had flipped a switch. She's constantly disrespectful, says hurtful things, like she wishes I was dead, and even goes to great lengths to avoid seeing me or being near me. She is only ever nice to me if I have something she needs or wants, like money, or if I'm making her food or something. So her school called our house phone today to see how she was, and made sure that she had all she needed to do her schoolwork as we are back in lockdown. She brought the phone back into me after the call, and I asked if everything was okay. We had a semi-normal conversation for a change, until she said she wanted to go back to school. I told her she couldn't, as her mum is extremely vulnerable, and if she got COVID and passed it on to her, she would get extremely ill. Stepdaughter said, "If I passed it to you, would you survive?" So I said, "I don't know." And she replied, "Well, I hope you get it, and don't, then you wouldn't be here anymore." I've spoken to my wife repeatedly about the things she says, and she has spoken to her, but the response she gets is that my stepdaughter hates me and always has, and anytime she's been with me, like when I took her to the football or went out geocaching with her, she was faking enjoying spending time with me. And all those times in the past when she said she wants to call me dad were fake too. It breaks my heart. I feel like I've done something to change her view of me, but I don't know what, as she won't say. She won't give a reason why she says she hates me, and she always has. I tend to stay out of her way, to avoid it at all, which makes me sad and it causes tension with my wife sometimes. Is this normal behavior? My wife says it's normal teen girl lashing out behavior, but even her friends have pulled her up on it when they've been around in the past and heard what she says to me. I tend to let it slide mostly, but that COVID thing, that was harsh. Edit. So this has blown up way more than I expected. Thanks for all the responses. There is much for us to look into. Much to my surprise, she's decided to spend the evening with us playing a board game with just me and my wife, which is good, as it allowed us to have a proper chat. My wife has got her to apologize, and I told her how much that stuff hurt me. We've gone through some stuff briefly, and she is very anxious about school, her life, where she fits in the world. We think she may have anxiety, as she's worrying about things she shouldn't be, and things she thought that we'd be mad about but aren't really. Her choice of partner, and what she wants to focus on exams-wise, and I just told her that I want her to be happy, and whatever she chooses to do, I will support her. In the comments, oh ouch. My gut response is this is about her bio dad. She's old enough to understand that he had a choice and knew what he chose. It's easier to project that on you. Also, her mum being vulnerable is scary for her, and probably makes her feel guilty along with resentment. Add in COVID and homeschooling plus social media, she's got a lot on her preteen plate. It could be feelings bubbling up that she doesn't even know how to process yet. It comes out in angry, dark comments that are super concentrated. I was a really depressed teenager, and I feel so bad still for things that I said to my parents. I didn't mean them, at least not how an adult would interpret them. Hard as it is, I would suggest trying to separate yourself from who she is aiming at and acknowledge that she isn't talking to you. She's talking to her own projection of you, which is likely a weird combo of you and her dad. It might help it sting less so you can remain grounded and supportive in helping her navigate some dark stuff. And OP replies, I'm now thinking that too. He left when my stepdaughter was 2 and her brother was 2 weeks old. So she barely knew him. She does ask about him, but as he's gone silent, we have no details of where he is, and he's never reached out. He's not at his last address, and although he has contact details for us, but he's never used them. Nor has he ever paid any child support or anything either. My wife doesn't really want to see him as he was violently abusive to her, but was willing to allow him to see the kids supervised. He has never responded though. You could be right. Maybe she's taking the rejection out on me. I don't react or snap back when she says these things to me, I just brush it off. But with all the anxiety about COVID going about, it hit a nerve. She knows I'll have her back whatever happens, I tell her all the time, but to go from being quite close to this, it's hard. And now, onto the update. Hello all. You may have seen my previous post about the issues I was having with my stepdaughter. Well, I didn't know where to put this, but I just had to put it out there. So yesterday, I took my youngest, my biological son, to the park, and much to my surprise, she wanted to come too. Cue the following conversation. She says, "Can I tell you something?" And I say, "Yes, of course." "You do know that I don't actually hate you, right? I just wanted you to know that." So I said, "Thanks for telling me. I love you too." I feel so happy now. We are in such a better place, and it's a load off. Her general attitude around me is much better, and I think she now knows that I'm there for her for good. It has helped. I just wanted to post this somewhere, as it's brightened lockdown up so much knowing that. For anyone else, stick at it. Step-parenting is so hard, but it is worth it in the end. In the comments, my kids hit puberty during COVID. Would not recommend. Same, it's been tough. She's a great kid, but she's had a rough go of it since then. My mom says that a switch flipped when I became a teenager, but the only difference was that I started yelling back at her. She would scream and yell and say horrible things because she was insanely stressed out. And by then, I just started imitating her and throwing it back. It was so frustrating for her to just tell everyone that I was an insane child and that I was just being a stupid teenager, so none of my concerns got addressed. No one believed me when I would talk about the abuse I suffered either, because I was just going through puberty. I just hope that parents don't see this post as a justification and validation for their children actually expressing concerns and pain to them. When kids lash out, it's almost always because they learned that behavior, not a judgment on you. I'm sure you're great, just a general statement. As soon as I hit 13, my parents justified their verbal and emotional abuse of me by saying, "She's just being a typical teen." It was like they were waiting till the day that I turned 13 so they could use it as an excuse. My mum would say smugly about how she'd talked to this or that person about me, and they'd agreed how difficult teenagers were. It really hurt because I was a damn good kid actually, and it sounded like she was going around telling everyone what a trial I was and having them on her side. I do remember that she had been starting to get physical and slapped me one day, and I had enough and slapped her back. She looked furious and slapped me again, so I slapped her back. This was so out of character for me, but I was fed up. I swear that I saw on my mother's face then the realization of, crap, she's now taller and stronger than me, and she didn't do it again. At least the slapping. Am I the a-hole for saying that I won't come to Christmas at my in-laws if I can't wear a hat? This is a petty little thing, but maybe you guys can help me know if I was in the wrong. For context, I, 25 female, got married in November. My mother-in-law doesn't really like me, even trying to steal the spotlight at my wedding, but is still overly traditional. At Thanksgiving, I was having a really bad hair day, so I wore a black leather cap, a dressier newsboy-style one, which my husband said looked great on me. The holiday was hostile, even more so than prior gatherings that I'd been to, and hubby said mother-in-law said that it was because I wore a hat, but I know that it was just an excuse. I told mother-in-law that I wouldn't come to Christmas with them, and then blocked her number in Facebook. My husband is trying to keep us both happy since he doesn't like conflict. He wants me to come to one more celebration to see if maybe people are getting used to me. He's told mother-in-law that she needs to be nice and treat me as a part of the family since I am, and that if I feel unwelcome at Christmas like I did at Thanksgiving, that we won't attend future events, and she won't see him much anymore. I understand why he wants me to give her one final chance, and she hasn't had any conflict with him. Marriage is about compromise, and I get that he doesn't want to cut her off since she is his mother, but I just don't want to be involved with her unless I have to be. I wanted to see if mother-in-law was listening to him, so I asked my husband to request that I be allowed to wear the same hat to Christmas. Hubby said that he'd thought that I'd worn it since I had a bad hair day, but this time it's as a statement that they shouldn't treat me as an outsider, either because I wear hats all the time, right now it's just a sports visor which I'd never wear to a holiday, so it's not like I'm doing that, or they just don't like me. If they won't let me wear a hat, what else are they going to restrict about me? Let me be me, or I won't come, period. My husband agreed and relayed this to mother-in-law, and she's been asking him why he married the devil. He's growing tense with me, and I told him he'll probably have to pick a side sooner or later, and that I never intended it that way. He spent last night at a friend's house because he needed to think. I feel bad because I care about him and no conflict stresses him out. I told him to text me when he was ready to talk, but he hasn't yet. My friends think that my hat request was unnecessary and maybe I strained my relationship with my husband. I think he just needed space to think because conflict stresses him out. So I've got to ask, am I the asshole for saying that I won't come if I don't wear a hat? In the comments, everyone sucks here. You took a situation that could have been a first step towards a less contentious relationship with your mother-in-law, and you made demands which intentionally antagonized her. Of course, you should be able to wear whatever you want, and your mother-in-law is being insane in this situation, but do you want to be right, or do you want peace in your family? You don't think that if it wasn't the hat, it would be the skinny jeans or sandals in the winter, or the pink chunk of hair? Come on. Look, of course it would. It's obviously not about the hat. Change is hard, and it comes in tiny increments. If you want to actually make progress, you have to go slow. I think the issue for the OP is that she's having to be the one to make do with being mistreated, and mother-in-law has to do nothing when she was the one causing an issue. The devil is not an insult thrown lightly, especially if the tradition is so valued, it seems. The mother-in-law's inability to extend the olive branch with a hat as a form of apology for her previous actions, I rate as a larger issue than the minor antagonism of OP. You are literally trying to bait mother-in-law. It's like you want a reaction from her. It's generally considered rude to be wearing a hat indoors / while dining. And bad hair day? It's a family get-together. It seems pretty immature to even be thinking about that. I'd expect it from a teenager maybe, but an adult? You're putting your husband in a crappy situation. What? People are allowed to be self-conscious about their appearance at any age, lol, especially during the holidays, when many people they don't typically see will be there and many photos are taken. Edit to add, y'all coming after me for things unrelated to my comment are annoying. I think OP is petty, but saying grown people aren't allowed to care about their appearance is not like the other girls to the max. Yeah, that part is fine, but you don't plan a bad hair day, therefore OP shouldn't be planning on wearing a hat to piss off mother-in-law. I think OP and mother-in-law are both petty AF. Yeah, OP and mother-in-law both the a-hole, and they seem very similar. 40% of the posts here are age gap relationships predictably going wrong, 40% are men marrying their mother and wondering why the two women pick stupid fights with each other all the goddamn time, and the other 20% are some poor teens' families screwing them over. I don't get why so many of these wives and mother-in-laws make it their life goal to compete with each other. Get better hobbies. Dang. And now, on to the update. My husband just texted me saying he just got off the phone with his mother. He told her off for calling me the devil and said that if I can't wear a hat, he's not coming either, and that she really should get over her antiquated BS. She did not respond well. I don't think we're going to Christmas there now, so maybe we'll have a friend miss. I don't know. We'll think of something. In the comments, I really want to say everyone sucks here because it's a hat, but honestly, you're the a-hole. You were going so far out of your way to be a child and act petty. You were 25. Time to grow up. Blocking her and making a statement by wearing the hat again is so unnecessary. You were going out of your way to make your relationship with your mother-in-law even harder, which in turn makes not only your relationship with your husband harder, but is also straining the relationship between him and his mother. You say marriage is about compromise. However, I only see him compromising to try and make you comfortable. So many people have in-laws they hate or don't like, but they compromise for their partner because they love them. It sounds like your husband married someone just like this mother. This is honestly the most immature way of handling it that I could have imagined. If you love your husband, stop making him choose between the two women that he loves. You may be snickering, fist-pumping to yourself for winning this time, but I can't promise you he holds resentments towards you for not having some class. And I'm guessing wearing a hat to dinner isn't all you did to upset her. Even if mother-in-law is petty, trust me, she will not change. I know this because my own mum hasn't changed. But if your husband wants to break contact with her, it needs to be on his own account and not yours. Unexposed is titled, "My boyfriend won't speak to me because his brother bought me shoes." I, 19 female, was invited for a family dinner at my, 23 male, boyfriend's house. Everything was great and I get along with his family really well. They are very kind to me. After the dinner, we were all sitting in the living room watching TV. It was just me, my boyfriend, his parents, and his younger brother, 20 male. At some point, his brother gets up and goes to his room and returns with a shoebox. It wasn't wrapped, and apparently nobody knew about this because they asked what's going on. He said it's for me and he handed me the box. It was shoes and sneakers that I mentioned a while ago. He has the same ones, and I said they look cool, so he decided to buy them for me as a gift. I didn't really know what to think, but I was really appreciative of the gesture, and I thanked him several times. They go for about $200 currently, and I really felt that he shouldn't have spent that money on this. But regardless, what's done is done, and I wasn't going to cause a scene in front of everyone. His parents seemed to have found it amusing as well, and the only one who was upset was my boyfriend. Later when we were going home, I realized he is being quiet, which is unusual for him. I asked what's wrong, and he went on a rant saying that I shouldn't have accepted the shoes, and that it's weird that he bought me the same shoes he has. He also said he's quite sure that his brother likes me for a while already, and that's why he did it. I tried my best to defuse the situation, and I said that we can all talk together about it this weekend when we see each other again, but he wants to cancel the Christmas dinner that we're supposed to have with his family over this. To be honest, sure, it's a bit unusual that he decided to get me an unprompted gift. He said that it's not a Christmas gift, and if he really felt that he had to get them, he probably should have chosen a different color or something, just so that it doesn't look as odd as it does. But then again, he probably went off my comment that his shoes are cool, which I made a couple of months ago, and wanted to do something nice since we're kind of family at this point. My boyfriend still insists that his brother has ulterior motives and that I am enabling it, and it's getting really annoying. I feel that he's blaming me for something that his brother decided to do. I even said that I'll return the damn gift if it'll make him happy, which I honestly don't really want to do. Not because of the shoes themselves, but I feel that the parents and brother might see it as me being ungrateful or not appreciating the gesture. I told him the two of them should also speak about this in private and discuss boundaries because he obviously has a problem with his behavior and he should tell him that himself and not use me as a middleman. We've been arguing over this for 2 days already since the dinner, and his words just get worse and way hurtful every time. Last night, he told me to go be with his brother instead after I said that I honestly don't see why he's, my boyfriend, acting the way that he is. He won't speak to me now, and I'm really confused. In the comments, this sounds like a boyfriend and brother issue. There are clearly dynamics at play that outdate your relationship if your boyfriend reacted this strongly. You should give your boyfriend the shoes and tell him to deal with it. If he wants to confront brother and return the shoes, it's up to him, but just tell him that you are removing yourself from this situation. Side note, I find it very odd that the brother didn't just say it was a Christmas gift. That definitely elevated the awkwardness. And Dopey replies, yeah, his brother has quite a goofy personality. I'm not surprised he didn't think it through before deciding on the gift. If your boyfriend has suspected his brother of having a crush on you, and then him giving you 200 quid shoes, and not even as a Christmas present, then yeah, that's defo weird. I probably wouldn't have said that you shouldn't accept it, but I would definitely be having a talk with the brother if I was him. However, I understand also him being hesitant to do so, because it could damage the entire family. Quote, I told him the two of them should also speak about this in private and discuss boundaries, because he obviously has a problem with his behavior, and he should tell him that himself and not use me as a middleman. Well, you are absolutely correct. This sounds like an issue between your boyfriend and his brother, and to be honest, your boyfriend is handling it far more immaturely than the brother did. Best case scenario, it's just a well-intentioned but slightly awkward gift. Worst case scenario, he has a crush on you. In either case, there is no reason for your boyfriend to get angry with you, because whether or not his brother has a crush on you is A, not within your control, B, not your fault, and C, ultimately not important unless your brother doesn't trust you to be faithful. Random people can have crushes on you all day long. It doesn't impact your boyfriend unless he thinks that you're going to act on it. Frankly, I'd be pretty insulted by his continued sulking toward you, because it basically implies that he thinks that you would cheat on him if given the opportunity. Maybe it's time to remind him that he is implying that, and it's starting to piss you off. The amount of comments just ignoring that her boyfriend is becoming increasingly verbally abusive to OP and blaming her for a situation that she had no control over is incredibly depressing. And now, onto the update. I'm still getting the silent treatment from my boyfriend. I tried to talk and ask again to get to the bottom of the issue together, but he didn't say anything. I also said I'm willing to return the shoes, but he must talk with his brother about it, but he didn't respond. I left the house a couple of hours ago to clear my head, and while I was at the gym, the brother called me, basically saying my boyfriend told him to take his dumbass shoes back and to stay away. Which makes no sense because we go to his family's house every week for dinner. Anyway, I'm quite upset. He didn't want to talk to me, and then he starts picking fights with his brother without trying to resolve the conflict first. Not to mention, I feel he is being quite harsh and controlling to both of us. I really don't know what I'll do now, but it seems to me that he just doesn't want to work this out together. I hate that this happened over the holidays as well, because his mum was really excited that we'll all be spending Christmas together. I'll keep trying to talk to him, but I'm out of ideas and hope for our relationship at this point. In the comments, I don't know. I really don't like the way that your boyfriend is treating you due to the actions of his brother. This would and should be a huge red flag, regardless of whatever weird dynamic is at play between the brothers. Maybe the little brother hooked up with a past girlfriend of your boyfriend, or he dated a girl whom he knew that his brother was into, etc. It doesn't excuse your boyfriend's behavior. He clearly shuts down when he is angry. He is emotionally immature. That's okay for a 23-year-old to a degree, as they are still growing technically, but it's definitely something to look into. If this is how he reacts, are you prepared to deal with this type of behavior every time he doesn't get his way in life? Instead of communicating, he's acting like an emotionally unhinged child. I personally would draw the proverbial line in the sand. Explain to him his reaction to you is not acceptable. If he can't communicate his issues in a calm and collected way, then you'll need to break up. It's not fair to treat you like this. Also, things like this do not get better. If he doesn't learn now, then he never will. Do you want to deal with this type of childish, mean behavior for the rest of your lives? If the answer is no, leave now. You are so young. You literally have your life ahead of you, but don't waste time. You can never get it back. Good luck. I honestly hope that you get some firm boundaries and you follow through, or leave this relationship. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for forcing my daughter to interact with her aunt? My daughter, 16 female, has been refusing to interact with her aunt, my sister. Aunt, who I'll call Helen, comes over every Monday and Thursday to bring dinner and catch up with the family. My husband and I enjoy her company, and it's nice to have meals already made for 2 out of 7 days. My daughter, who I'll call Amy, has been avoiding her aunt like she's the plague. On Mondays and Thursdays, Amy goes to either her friend's or her boyfriend's house. She leaves at around 10 a.m. and won't come home until 10:30. We know that Amy isn't doing anything bad because she'll always tell us the night where she's going and will always come home before her curfew. I also have a tracker, which she knows about, on her phone, so I know where she is. Amy has been doing this since the beginning of July. Recently, Helen has noticed that Amy is never home when she's over. Helen loves Amy and really wants to spend time with her, but Amy refuses. On Thursday, after she came home and Helen left, I asked Amy why she keeps avoiding her aunt, but then Amy blew up at me. Amy started yelling and crying about how horrible Aunt Helen is to her, and how she always makes Amy feel like crap. Amy also said that Helen is very mentally abusive towards her and is a gaslighter. I got very angry and told Amy that she is overreacting, that Helen does and says things out of love, and that she can't help it. Amy continued to yell and cry about how horrible her aunt is. I told Amy that she was acting like a spoiled brat, and I proceeded to take her phone and all of her electronics away from her. Today, I talked to Amy and said that she now has to stay home on Mondays and Thursdays and spend an hour with Aunt Helen. If Amy doesn't, then she'll be grounded for 2 weeks and she won't have her electronics for that time either. Amy started to cry, probably trying to guilt trip me, and she begged to at least only do this on Mondays. I said no, and I reminded her of her punishment if she refuses to comply. Amy called me a butthole and said things that really hurt my feelings. I told Helen about this, and she thanked me for having my daughter stay home. After all, she really does love Amy. My husband said that I went overboard with taking her things away, but believes that Amy is being a brat. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for forcing my daughter to interact with her aunt? I think that I'm in the right, but I want to see what you all think. In the comments, you're the a-hole. First, you do not get to minimize your daughter's feelings. Second, you do not get to minimize your daughter's feelings. This is how you ensure your daughter will come to hate you, start to rebel, and ultimately cut you out of her life when she moves out. If you can't get out of your own way to take your daughter's feelings seriously, then you're failing hard at being a proper parent. Edit, I'm really happy to see others echo my sentiment. For everyone out there who's had their feelings minimized, my heart goes out to you. I spent so much of my own youth minimizing my own feelings out of fear that by the time I found my voice, I wasn't really sure who I was anymore. It took many years to learn what my real voice is. Don't let anyone take away yours from you. Mandated reporter here, trained to look for signs of abuse, like, a kid being absolutely terrified of an adult. From the very little that we know, the aunt sounds emotionally abusive at the very least. The fact that there are other things that OP's daughter won't even tell her is really alarming. OP subjecting her own daughter to her abuser and punishing is disgusting as F. Trying to make her daughter essentially forgive and forget is robbing her of her autonomy and reinforcing that she has to tolerate abuse. You're the a-hole, OP. Dear God, that was exactly my first thought. If a kid is going through such lengths to avoid an adult, there is an effing reason. You're the a-hole. Seriously, when teens avoid adults like that, literally do not want to be in the house with the person, it's likely that what she's saying is absolutely true. You are putting your sister above your daughter here, and it's definitely going to cost you in the future. Edit, as I reread, I'm seeing so many red flags. You have a tracker on Amy? Your response to your 16-year-old daughter saying she doesn't want to be anywhere near your sister is that she's a brat? Her crying is to guilt trip you? Yet you give zero context on why she's avoiding Helen so much. This reminds me so much of the missing reason. Edit 2, as I read comments, I'm getting horrified. Your sister has been both physically, forcing someone to eat, and verbally, not pretty, looks bad, and others, abusive, since you were kids, but is now okay because she's trying to get better? Not only that, she comes over twice a week. Back up to the post, we have an edit. Amy has told me about some bad things Helen has said and done to her in the past. I understand those things, and I've talked to Helen about those things, and Helen has apologized and wants to make things up with Amy, but Amy has refused. Edit, so I don't have to respond to every question. When Amy was younger, she would spend a lot of time over at Helen's house. Helen is the type of person who says what's on her mind, and she never holds back. Helen would tell Amy if she's eating too much or too little, that she looked bad, didn't look pretty, as well as other things. Amy claims that Helen would force her to eat a lot, even if Amy was uncomfortable. There are other things that Amy refuses to tell me, so all I know is that Helen has made a few comments here and there. I must also add that these comments were made years ago. Edit, I really love Amy, and I love Helen too. Helen admits to her wrongdoings, but Amy is the one who doesn't want to sit down and accept the apology. And now, on to the update. I have read almost all of your responses and have looked through as many messages as I can. Some of the things sent to me were devastating to say the least, but not as devastating as me realizing what I did to Amy. I fully accept that I am the butthole and that there are no excuses to my actions. I apologized to Amy and said that whenever she's ready to talk, she can. I also told her that she doesn't have to accept my apology. When Amy is ready, I'll talk to her about Helen. I called Helen this morning and told her not to come over for the next few weeks. She asked why, but I didn't give her an answer. I don't want to confront Helen with anything until Amy feels it's okay. After all, Amy is the one who suffered the most. And now in the comments, the worst thing is that the mother herself knows there is more to the story and that Amy hasn't told her everything Helen did to her. Geez, I wonder why that is. Maybe because every time she tried to tell her mother, she brushed it off and made it unimportant? If my kid got to the point where she won't even share how others have hurt them with me, well, at least I'd know that I've done something wrong, unlike OP. She didn't brush it off, but literally punished her daughter for saying it. Yeah, Amy trusted her mother with some sort of the truth and was rewarded by having her electronics and sanctuary from her abuser taken away, as well as being forced to spend time with her abuser. Gee, I wonder why she won't tell you anything more. Also, did anyone notice the huge steps in escalation? OP's daughter's first answer to a question that's per se pretty normal is yelling and crying, and not like explaining. To that, OP's answer is berating her daughter and grounding her, instead of listening to her and letting her calm down before talking about it. I bet Amy had already mentioned this to her mother, but she didn't listen. To OP, it came out of the blue, but I think that she missed a lot of other signs or brushed off and forgot literal explanations. OP was giving excuses for Helen in the first post. She knows that Helen is a bully, but has normalized that behavior. She never thought critically about the consequences of unleashing that monster on a tiny, vulnerable child. How uncaring do you have to be to continue to push aside your own child's hurt feelings for the sake of another person? Like, great that you got it in the end, but you created more damage because you refused to value Amy's feelings. And the fact that the parent kept saying she refuses to forgive, as if that's not a valid feeling to have, especially when wronged as a teen navigating heavy emotions. I'm shocked by this person's choices. Am I the butthole for not helping my disabled sister with college? So I, 24 female, have 4 siblings. They are Max, Lisa, Chris, and Emily. Emily is disabled, and because of that, my parents dedicated themselves 100% to her, leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves. When Max left for college, I became the main caregiver for my siblings, plus all household chores were my responsibility. I want to make it clear that Emily's disability does not stop her from functioning like any other person, and she doesn't require any assistance or supervision or 24/7 care. However, my parents have always spoiled her rotten, and she is very rude, mean, and entitled. My parents raised her with the mentality that her disability means that she's allowed to do whatever, and everyone needs to bend backwards for her. My grandparents passed away 3 years ago, and I inherited everything, which is approximately $6 million. They were very well off, I know. The reasons I received all of it is because, when my grandparents were sick, Max contacted them after almost 10 years of silence because he wanted to know how much he would receive. I'm no contact with him, by the way. They were very aware of how my mum treated me and my siblings, and she was disowned. They were very religious, and Lisa came out as bi at 14, and Chris came out as gay at 17. I went no contact with my parents after I moved for college, and when Lisa and Chris started college, I offered to cover all of their individual and educational expenses as long as they do well in school. They gladly accepted. I also helped my BFF Lola, female 21, start her own business. I haven't spoken to my parents in 6 years. I haven't blocked them, they just never called or texted. This year, Emily started college, and she burned out all of her college fund in less than 4 months because she's a spoiled brat and bags were more expensive than rent, lol. In addition, she is doing horrible in school because she isn't even attending her classes, and she'll most likely be expelled or held back. My mum called me 2 weeks ago to not ask, but demand that I do the same for her that I do for Lisa and Chris. I said no because, growing up, I was literally a slave for her and my parents. I'm helping Lisa and Chris because they are the only ones that treated me as family. I ended the call by telling her that for 18 years, Emily was their only kid, so now they have no right to demand anything from the kids they practically abandoned. Now I'm getting crap from everyone, except Lisa and Chris, because I'm causing unnecessary drama. I'm causing a rift between Emily and her siblings, and Emily will be the only one without a degree. It's not really my money, and my grandparents would want me to help her. Then why didn't they leave anything for her? Family is family, and I should help my little sister. I don't buy into that crap. It's not her fault that my parents were bad parents to me. True, but she doesn't do anything to change her behavior. She's disabled, and it's not okay to discriminate. WTF? I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but everyone is telling me that I'm not, so am I the butthole? OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the butthole. I refuse to financially provide for my disabled sister because of how I was treated growing up, and that makes me a butthole. I'm gonna say for this one, I don't think that you're a butthole for what you have done in this situation. They didn't contact you for 6 years, and all of a sudden they want that money. Your brother didn't contact the grandparents for 10 years, and all of a sudden he wants that money. These people will do and say anything just to separate that money from you. They don't care about anything else. And if that's the case, why would you care about anything they say or do to you? Just continue as you were pre the money and block all attempts at them taking that money from you. In the comments, not the butthole. They don't contact you at all for 6 years until they want money for Emily? Screw that. You already paid for 2 of your siblings' educations, which means they didn't have to, so they should have plenty to put towards hers. You said that you never blocked them. I'd say that it's time to do so, because they sound awful. Not the butthole. Your grandparents knew who was the right person to get their money. Don't fold, you are 100% in the right. Her grandparents gave her all the money because 2 of her siblings were queer. True, the grandparents were a-holes for disowning them because they are queer. OP, however, did the right thing by accepting the money and helping her siblings. By doing so, she gave a big F you to the homophobic grandparents, like you didn't leave them anything, but they still got to enjoy the inheritance. Not the butthole. Emily has too much time on her hands as it is. If she really wants to attend college, she can get a job and take a few classes. Giving money to her at this point would be giving money to Louis Vuitton. So she blew up $500K buying crap. She can sell the crap that she buys. And you have a nice uncle. OP says, funny how they never considered that. Like, that's what I would do if I was broke. Or take a loan? Back up to the post, we have an edit. I received a lot of messages with questions, and a few asked in the comments about my sister's disability, so I'm going to answer some questions. What disability does she have? I don't know. My parents never told me, and when anyone asked, they would get very defensive. Can't Emily get governmental assistance? Well, no, because she doesn't have documentation that attests that she is disabled. I remember my parents fighting about taking my sister to different doctors because they all refused to sign that she was disabled. Why doesn't the rest of my family pay for her? Well, that's because they are living paycheck to paycheck, because they would spend thousands on buying Emily whatever she wanted. Why can't my parents continue paying? Well, that's because Emily's spending problems got worse since she left home, and the rest of the family is no longer in the position to give them money. Also, my dad had a work accident a few months ago, and he was forced to retire, so now their income has significantly reduced. How can someone spend that much? Well, that's simple. She renewed her closet, purchased a very expressive car, and just partied until she dropped. For reference, my parents have high-paying jobs, and Emily's college fund was around $587,000 when I left for college. Did me and my siblings have a college fund? Nope. We all worked our asses off to get scholarships so that we can go. And I do have a will in place. If anything happens to me, all the assets will be split equally between Lisa, Chris, Lola, and an organization fighting for wildlife. And now on to the update. So, funny thing, my uncle called me a couple of hours after I made the post to tell me to block my family because they've come up with a plan to get me to pay. He didn't know what the plan was, he just heard a portion of the conversation between my mum and my aunt. And just like he said, my mum called me a few minutes later to tell me that Emily is pregnant, so I need to help her because if I don't, I'm damaging my niece/nephew. I'm crying with how hard I started laughing, and I just told her to F off. I blocked them all. But seriously, fake a pregnancy? Lamau? In the comments, the only thing that I can think of is that she was preemie, which the parents then assumed meant she was disabled forever. I mean, if my child was 5 years old and couldn't walk or talk, I'd think there is some significant problem going on. Who knows what the actual issue is or was, and what the sister's situation is today. But that definitely doesn't sound like a premature birth, unless there is a lot of things that I don't know about premature babies. Really depends on when the parents started their act with the kid. OP says she was their only kid for 18 years, which implies it started as soon as she was born and not 5+ years afterwards. She may have developed slowly because the parents treated her like she was disabled from the get-go, which would be why multiple doctors refused to sign her as disabled, especially when they can identify things like autism, etc., from much younger ages than 5 or 7 and be confident enough to diagnose it. Why would the parents do that though? Who knows? Who holds on to the delusion that their kid is disabled despite multiple doctors refusing to sign off on it? But also, who grows up in a household where their sibling is disabled and not be able to say what that disability is? This whole story seems weird. That's because if they admitted that she wasn't disabled, the blame for her behavior and failures would fall solely on them as her parents. Our next post is titled, "Am I the butthole for telling my wife it's her own fault for not getting invited on a group trip?" Me, 32 male, and my wife, 31 female, have been together for about 6 years. We get along wonderfully, and through everything, have never had any major fights except for one thing. I personally feel like my wife makes no effort to get along with my friends. Now, to give context, all my friends and I went to the same university for undergrad, 3 guys and 3 girls that are married. My wife is the only one that did not have this common trait of attending undergrad before the 8 of us, which is really not a big deal if you ask me. Early on in our relationship, my friends would always try and be friendly to her and talk to her when we would be mutually hanging out. My wife was cordial, but you could tell that she was uncomfortable. I would speak with her about this, and she would always comment that she was an outsider to all of us. This always personally made me slightly miffed because I felt that my friends always made an effort to include her and make sure that she wasn't singled out. Throughout the years, my wife would attend events with me but would seem distant and would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned. My friends never said anything but were always nice and treated her kindly. Well, this week I got a group text from my friends about planning a group vacation to somewhere next year. I quickly noticed that my wife wasn't on the group text and I asked about it. I got a call from one of my friends who basically said they didn't invite my wife because, based on all the previous interactions, they didn't think that she would want to attend. And even if she did want to attend, her attitude is crappy, and they don't want to ruin the vacation. I thanked my friend for his honesty and told him that I'd think about it. And while I love my wife, I figured she would more than likely not want to go on the vacation with them. So I told my wife about the trip, and she asked about the details. I told her that while I was invited, she wasn't, and it wasn't because of anything she did, but because they thought that she wouldn't want to attend. Well, this statement just seemed to be about how she is an outsider. She said that because of the history us 7 had together, she had no chance of ever being a part of the group. She then went on a rant about how my friends are awful people, and that she deserved to be invited even if she didn't want to go there because she is my wife. I sat there and listened to her vent, and then finally I calmly told her that it was pretty much her own fault for not being invited because she had taken such a hostile stance with them from the get-go. She became a self-fulfilling prophecy about being an outsider. That's paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines. She left the house and went to her mother's. I haven't spoken to her in several days, despite texts and phone calls to try and talk to her. I probably should have been more diplomatic about what I said, but I do feel that my friends have been treated unfairly. Am I the butthole? I'm gonna go with yes, you are the butthole for this one. It sounds very rude what you've done. And the way that you approached this with your wife wasn't diplomatic, like you said. It sounded like more of an attack to me. To me, it seems like you haven't put your best foot forward trying to assimilate her into the friend group, and you've made no effort to try and get them to come together, to invite your wife on this trip. You've kind of just let them do their own thing. You've kind of let her do her own thing and be excluded. That doesn't sound like a very friendly or nice thing for a partner to do, so I'm going to go with you're the butthole for this one. In the comments, you're the butthole for not declining the event when they made it clear that your wife wasn't invited. It's all couples, all spouses, except her. You can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy if you like, but they really are proving exactly what she's feared all along. That you not only didn't defend your wife, but thanked the friend who spelled out why she wasn't invited is the definition of yikes. Also, want to call out the line, she would sometimes skip group events to hang out with her college friends if she had something else planned. If she had something else planned, she didn't skip your events. she had plans with the equivalent group to the one that you had plans with. He's definitely trying to make his group the priority with that statement. It's a shame that he can't do the same with his marriage. Yes, especially since he thanked his friend after being told his wife was excluded. Seems like he already made up his mind that it would be better if she didn't go. He thanked him for his honesty, which is a valid thing to thank him for. It's not like the friend was lying that he already knew that it was true, and the friends tried to be nice about it, but he asked them why. If he didn't want an answer, he shouldn't have asked the question. I can kinda see where you're coming from, but honestly, after the friend said the wife was excluded from a couple's vacation, if I were in his shoes, I'm not sure my inclination would have been to thank that person. I'd have been like, WTF, mate? You're the butthole. They excluded your wife from a group trip, end of story. You have disregarded your wife, telling you she feels like an outsider with these people for years. I'm guessing that your wife has been politely dealing with the fact that she does not like these people and has put up with them for your sake. And now seeing their actions, I can see why she doesn't feel comfortable with them. They are buttholes. That's what gets me. OP gave zero indication that the wife has done anything rude/untoward to the friends. She just doesn't mesh with them. Why is that so terrible? It sounds like she's polite and nice when they're all together, but feels new. Duh. They all have established history. Why does it matter so much if she becomes best buddies with your buddies? I understand and acknowledge that it's no doubt a fun dynamic when everyone and their partner are besties, but that is not your situation. There is no reason your wife should be excluded. She hasn't done anything to them except be new, and it's a couple's trip. Edit to add, shucks, thanks for the stars. OP, stop living in a fantasy world. There is no rule that says your wife has to be friends with your friends. It's childish and delusional to essentially be blaming her for not fitting into your fantasy friend fic. You are so dismissive of her, and the importance to her of her friends. You just let some guy crap talk your wife and exclude her from a couple's trip, and you agreed. Maybe you should just skip to the ending where you don't tell your wife that you'll be making an art studio for your friends in your house. What a fun little throwback that story was. Don't we all just have a friend that we make an art studio for in our house that we secretly have a relationship with and it ruins our marriage and it's really messy? No? Just me? That's weird. And now, on to the update. So, I'd gotten some people asking for an update, so I figured I'd give one. I deleted my original post because holy cow, I got some nasty messages from y'all. Some of which I'll say I deserved. Others were just absolutely horrid, but hey, I asked for advice and I had to deal with it. As for the raking over the coals it received in the comments, you guys were right. A lot of your comments rang true and made me realize how much of a butthole I was being to my wife. I don't have any excuse for what I was thinking previously, but it was wrong. And in that moment, I realized that without intervention on my part, I was going to lose my wife. Hell, even with intervention, there was still a chance that I would lose her. It was a giant wake-up call to myself for how I was treating someone I loved and cared about. How could I be so callous and cold? Well, I started with a phone call and a text to her. I started the same in both, that I would not be attending the trip, and that when she was ready to talk, I would be at home waiting, and that I was more sorry than I could ever be. I wouldn't be bugging her again until she was ready. So what happened in the first week following everything? It was radio silence for about 2 days, which I spent the entirety of pretty much shut off from the world. But my wife pulled into the driveway mid-afternoon and then came into the house. I could tell that she was on the verge of tears, and so was I. She said she wanted to have a serious talk about us, our relationship, and it would likely be a rest of the day conversation. So I let her speak. The first conversations were requirements for our relationship to have to be met to even potentially salvage it. 1. Couples counseling. 2. I would not be friends out with my old college friends. Sans one couple which will be relevant shortly. And 3. More effort and love from me. I know many commenters said in my post that they didn't think that I loved my wife, but I do. I seriously do. She's amazing, and I wouldn't have married her if I didn't love her, so of course I agreed. She made it clear to me that even if I did do all these things, it didn't guarantee that she would stay. I told her I understood, and that all I could do was try and make up for what I could. I then asked her why I would be allowed to remain friends with the one couple, we'll call them J and K, and she told me that after the text about her not being invited came out and my idiot response, J and K reached out to her. They apparently hadn't been told of this plan, and the two other couples had sprung it onto them, and when I responded about thinking about still going, they were pretty upset with my response, and reached out to her to make sure that she was okay. They had texts to back up them not knowing about her not being invited, and texts reaming out the other two couples for doing this. They didn't text me or let me know anything because they were upset with me too, and rightly so. The conversation went on for several more hours, lots of tears, but it did end up with a hug. So where does that bring us to today? In the months since the incident, and while things are not fully healed, I would say we are headed in the right direction. Couples counseling has been something I wished I would have done earlier and has been very eye-opening to many of my behaviors. My wife has also said that this has also been useful to her as well, especially regarding our friendships. One of the main things I've learned is that I was not as open as I thought I was with my wife's friends. Hell, she could have written the same post about me and it would have been correct. While I was nice, was I putting in effort? Was I actively engaging with the group? How could I hold my wife to a standard that I myself wasn't even meeting with her friends? It was like a lightning bolt to my head of how I had been acting. My wife also admitted that she was closed off to the group and that while she was friendly, she and myself had many of the same behaviors with each other's friends. I've tried to remedy that and have been actively working to be more engaged and social with her friends. I've even started golfing on my own with one of her friends' husbands, and I think she appreciates the effort on that end. I've also noticed that in hanging with J and K, she has been much more outgoing and willing to talk with them and engage with conversation. It isn't lost on me that this likely is due to the other two couples being awful people that she didn't talk previously, but I do greatly enjoy being able to spend time with my wife and my friends. The couples that planned the trip? I've talked to them once since, and it was a quick phone call to my ex-friend where I basically said that I was going to go non-contact if an apology was not issued to my wife. A half-assed sorry was given, but obviously done just to try and appease me. I haven't spoken to them since, and they haven't reached out to me. Good riddance. As for how my wife and I are, we're good. While I don't think I'll truly ever know how much I hurt her with my statements, I feel lucky that I've been given the chance to make amends. I gave her a small kiss on the cheek at an outing with J and K the other night. It's been the first sign of intimacy in a while, and my heart skipped a beat when she looked at me and smiled. It's a long road, and I consider myself lucky that I have been given an extra opportunity considering the circumstances I put our relationship in. And hell, maybe in a month, she decides that she has had enough, and I would only have myself to blame if that happens. But for the moment, I have started to process and rebuild my marriage and focus on the woman that I love and owe a lot to. She is an amazing person, and I thank God I get the opportunity to try and learn from my experiences and become a better husband for her. Thanks for listening, y'all. In the comments, I went to the original post, and it's clear that the friend group wanted OP to be with someone else that they knew, and that's why she felt like an outsider. It's clear that she did make an effort, and she received a cold reception. J and K were the only ones who seemed open to her, and they confirmed that the other couples very literally excluded her and decided to do so on their own. All this time, the wife had communicated to OP that there seemed to be a problem that stopped her from feeling welcome, while his friends did not. Then suddenly she's excluded from a couple's trip for something that they have never brought up before? Baby, OP's wife was correct, especially given that 1/3 of the couples literally did not have that problem with her. I just don't understand someone rolling over their wife for their friends. Have a frickin' backbone, dude. She's your wife. What was the plan for OP if he went on that trip alone? Were the two couples just expecting him to seventh wheel the whole time? Was there a potential 8th member who was going to be invited as a surprise? Was OP expected to cover the costs of 2 people on this trip? So many logistic questions. They sound like they were awful to OP's wife, but honestly, they don't sound like they were all that great to OP either. I'm glad J and K seem decent though. I handed him divorce papers today over his Reddit account and a bag of chips. Obviously, it goes without saying that it wasn't just the bag of chips, but hot Cheetos were my breaking point. I just couldn't take it anymore. I had already had the terms of separation drawn up 6 months ago when, during a heated argument, he said, "We don't have kids. You should be thankful that it's only me that you clean up after." I kept hearing it in my head. Thankful for cleaning up behind a grown man 10 years older than me? He apologized the next day in detail and told me why what he said was wrong and that he doesn't believe it, but maybe it's just out of my character, but I don't think the things that you say in those moments are just hurtful words. There is always a little bit of truth in them. And then I found his Reddit account a few days ago. I accidentally saw the username when he showed me a screenshot. I tried, well, not really, not to memorize it, and it took me 2 days to get the courage to look. In between the comments on NSFW subreddits was complaints about me and posts about me too. One post, he had been ripped to shreds and told he was a piece of crap. Reading those comments made me realize I was nothing but an effing idiot to think that love can fix things. I was 20 when I met him, and he was 35. I thought people were being dramatic or annoying about our age gap because my single father who raised me didn't have an issue, but then I realized that he was just the same type of effing creep. It was almost like my father pre-groomed me to accept certain behavior to make it easier for other men in my life. I'm getting off topic, but I came home early today after a rough day at work and finding out my direct reporting manager had been K-worded by her husband. I then walked in the door to see my lazy, filthy one. I told him what happened to her, and I started to cry. He didn't console me. He just said, "We don't know what made him do that. Let's wish both of them luck and move on with our day." Wish her luck? The frickin' dead lady? I tried to convince myself he just didn't pay attention. That soothed me for about an hour until I was in the middle of making dinner and he complained that it was already 6:45 p.m. I told him that he shouldn't be that hungry yet. He just ate half a bag of chips and left them on the table. So instead of A, helping me finish dinner, B, apologizing and waiting silently and patiently, C, finishing the bag of chips, or D, just laughing it off, he threw the bag of chips at me. 7 years together, 4 married, and he's never done anything that downright rude. Because low self-esteem aside, that's something that won't fly with me either way. The chips landed all over the floor that I had just mopped and swept. Whatever glare I gave him, it was enough to make him grab the broom in 30 seconds. It wasn't enough to make him at least check that it was all swept up and vacuumed after. So when I finished dinner and brought our plates to the dinner table thinking, wow, I really spoil him. The entire time we've dated, I've always made his plates and brought them right to him. No one has ever done that for me. And I stepped on a chip. It didn't hurt or anything, but I screamed. I'm not sure why, but I just couldn't take it anymore. So I ran to the home office and came back out with the papers and pen. I put them in front of his dinner plate and walked out while he was yelling my name. I'm killing a burger and fries in my car right now and realizing that I have to start all over. My life is done, but my love is for him too. I hope that I don't cave. I hope I don't let him convince me. I hope if I start to change my mind, I come back and read this post so that I understand this is not a heated decision. This is something that I need to do if I ever want anything like a real fudging life. In the comments, reminder for future OP, if you cave, he will know that he can treat you however he wants and there will be no repercussions. You got this. This is so true. Don't allow him to treat you like this, and worse. Don't give him any more of your precious time. You have a lot of time and dignity left in you. Indeed, this is how you get dignity. You fight for it. Dignity isn't just a gift of life. People with deep, authentic dignity earned it in a hard-won fight. You got this, OP. It's not just the dignity left in you, it's the dignity that you are going to win. I have fought through the most mortifying, dehumanizing, and stigmatizing situations with a screaming determination to maintain my dignity. If I couldn't have it in my appearance or my housing or my relationship history, I'd have it in my strength of will. F this guy, OP. It's your show now. Change and the unknown are always scary. You've been with this man for years, and I know that it feels like your life is done, but the thing is, only the life as you know it is done. The life where a man you love and supposedly loves you finds it okay to belittle you and disrespect you. The life where you will be forever cleaning up after a grown man who doesn't have enough decency or respect to pick up after himself. The life where your partner will always have very little respect for all women. Him justifying your boss's murder is just all sorts of screwed up. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did your best and you put in your all. This is not your fault. He is the flaw, and he will not change. I was in a relationship with a man 12 years older than I. I, much like you, did everything that I could to make him happy, but it was never enough. It was never enough to get him to pull his own weight, to stop the misogynistic opinions and degrading comments on women, to stop trolling NSFW accounts to oogle at other women while he told me that my body wasn't his preferred style, and that he just had to get that gratification somewhere. Who could blame him for doing that, you know? After all, it was my fault because my body wasn't good enough. Everything was always my fault, from his crappy moods to his poor behavior, because according to him, I was the one doing something wrong. So I, wrongly, thought that if I could just do better, I would be deserving of his love. He was manipulative and emotionally abusive, and I loved him. In hindsight, I see that he love-bombed me early on. He only revealed his true horrendous self little by little when I was in too deep to just walk away. I was raised to think that the end game was finding a man and that you should do whatever you can to make it work, no matter how incredibly crappy and emotionally abusive that he is. I finally left. It wasn't easy. I missed him. For a while, I thought the problem was me. It took time and space to see the full picture. Now I can't believe that I didn't get out sooner. I moved and changed jobs. I finally cut off contact with him. At first, I felt lonely and isolated, mostly because being with him alienated those close to me, but things got much better much quicker than I anticipated. I reconnected with my old friends, I love my job, I met a lot of great friends that are now my support system, and am now engaged to a wonderful man who treats me as his equal, while also helping to take care of me when I need it. My old life is done, my new life has begun, and is so much better. It'll take time, but you'll be happier. Stay strong, don't ever forget your worth. You deserve so much better than anything that this man has to offer you. I'm proud of you for having the strength and courage to leave. OP replies, I am genuinely so happy to hear that things got better for you. It feels almost like, hopefully, future me writing to current me, especially regarding bodies. I didn't include it, but the reason the burger and fries was so rewarding is that he always persuaded me not to eat it because I'd get fat and he wouldn't love me anymore. So even if I asked for a burger, he would order a grilled chicken sandwich or something. Thank you sincerely for your words. Seeing these other comments from other women who went through the same is helping me so much right now. And now, onto the update. Okay, yeah, I wasn't expecting this sort of reaction. I didn't even log back on Reddit and see all of the replies. I was scrolling on TikTok and saw my own post on my For You page, which is really weird. The algorithm is algorithming a bit scary. I really do appreciate the support and kind messages. I don't appreciate the weird men using this as a time to hit on me and send me selfies when I'm obviously in a weak moment. I guess I'm a loser magnet or something. The crazy part is this courage started growing when I saw someone's wife strike on TikTok soon after downloading the app during lockdown. Then read the comments and found some sort of solidarity and finally realized I wasn't the problem. I really was just posting it so I could leave for good this time. I'm sorry that my post isn't very concise or thorough, but this isn't the first time that I've left him. It's the fourth time, but it's the one for good. I'm done. I've been saving money since I left the first time 2 years ago. I'm not trapped with him anymore. When I left the second time, I knew being a housewife would never give me leverage in our relationship, so I got a job. Back then, it was just to even the playing field and show him that I can earn my keep. Now it's literally my saving grace. Half our relationship was built on lies. He told me he was 8 years older at first, and then 10, then the truth of it being 15 came out. That I've always tried to get over. Because people deserve forgiveness, according to my dad, the only person I ever went to besides Reddit about advice. I just want to know what peace is like in my own home. I went straight from living with my dad to living with my boyfriend/current husband. I can comfortably take blame for how my marriage is, how my life is. My dad may have conditioned and started a lot of it, but I'm old enough to have put my foot down a long time ago. My husband and my father being the only two men that I've ever had any type of relationship at 27 is my own fault. Sure, I was taught growing up that when men are around, don't make eye contact and keep my head down, and I did it always because good girls listen is what I was taught and all that I ever knew. Just how did the wave of feminism keep missing me? How did I allow my father to push away every close female relationship I had? How did I allow both of them to alienate me from the world? 2 years ago, a woman of my age, I think, asked for a tampon in the bathroom and I gave her one, and we had a 5-minute conversation of girl talk that I gushed over. I played it over and over for months until I realized it was absolutely insane. All she did was ask me what my favorite coffee order was and said I was pretty and she loved my handmade earrings. I had an extra pair in my car and gave them to her and she hugged me. That was it. But I held on to those 5 minutes because it was the last time that I had an interaction with a human being that didn't leave me feeling empty. I should have left for good when he told me that getting a master's degree is for men. I should have left when I picked up woodworking and simple robotics as hobbies, and he told me that I might be transgender and that he can't be attracted to a woman that wants to be a man. I am not trans, nor am I transphobic. I just like the smell of freshly sawed wood and making new things. I should have left when I got accepted into the best university in the state, and he told me that women would be happier if they stopped trying to compete with men. I should have left when my dad died, and he told me that I wasn't upset enough about the man who would choke me over burning food and dinner not being good enough at 11 years old. Our relationship got considerably worse after the wedding when I told him everything that my dad had done. I should have left when I got groped at a concert and he bought the guy a drink later. I should have left when his friends said things about my body and he just joined in, and later told me that I shouldn't complain and enjoy the attention while it lasts. I should have left when I told him that I wasn't sure if I wanted kids, and he told me that I wasn't a real woman if I didn't want them. I should have left when he admitted to having his fellow officers follow me and show up to my job to make sure I was actually where I said I was. I should have left when he gave me the silent treatment for a month when I told him that it was controlling and would only communicate via sticky notes. When he said things that were hateful towards women, I would then see videos in his YouTube watch history about unlearning sexism. Watched all the way through. I would think, hey, at least that's way more than my dad ever did. Hey, at least he doesn't hit me. Hey, at least he brings me flowers and takes me on dates often. Men are just like that, I was told. Men have to be respected, I was told. Your husband deserves full trust, I thought. To this day, I'm not sure if he did these to please me temporarily or because he meant it and at least half tried. I made the mistake of not leaving at least 100 times. I will never make that mistake again. He texted and called non-stop after I left. I went back to our home, his house, to get necessities with headphones on, and he came out of nowhere and snatched them off my head and then destroyed them. AirPod Maxes I just bought. I just kept packing and ignored everything he said until I realized my passport was gone. He won't admit it, but he 100% has it, and I know it. He wouldn't sign the papers. We argued a bit, and I finally just said it. I don't love you anymore. I can't love someone like you. I'm a grown woman now, and I don't want to be with you anymore. He countered it with, you can't survive without me. I'm the only man who has ever loved you. You don't have anything without me. I'm the breadwinner. This is my house. You have no money, no family, no friends. He's only right about the last two. I told him that we don't have a prenup, and if we divorce with him fighting me on it, I'll get half of everything. But if he signs the papers that I gave him, it agrees to leave him the house and all the furniture, 3 of 4 cars, and 80% of the money in our savings and investments. I can walk away and start over. I want to walk away and start over. He, on the other hand, probably needs a retirement plan that isn't young women. It's more than he deserves, but I don't want to look at anything that I have and be reminded of him. When he realized the yelling and threats wouldn't work, he then tried tears. And I almost caved. Then I remembered he was fudging 42 years old on his knees, crying about a 27-year-old that just wanted to be treated with love, dignity, and respect. I gave him close to a decade of my life, of nothing but loyalty and love. When he lashed out in anger, I responded with love. I am all out of love. I picked a random Airbnb over state lines so that he has little pull here, and my job is allowing me to work remotely for now. I can already see a life that's actually worth living coming to me. I have a lot of legal stuff to figure out that will be a headache, but it's still a smaller headache than loving him was. I don't think I'll go back. I only use this account for woodworking and photos of cows, so yeah. Sorry if I'm not super responsive. It was a lot of replies, and I'm trying to go through them. Really, thank you though to the kind words. I've cried and felt more supported today than I have my entire life. Now in the comments, fellow officers, yep, he's a fudging cop, and nobody is surprised. An officer who already admits to getting his co-workers to follow her on duty, she needs to get as far away from that location as possible. One of my good friends dated an abusive cop for years. When they were on the rocks, he would have his cop buddies posted up outside her house to monitor her activity. When she finally broke up with him, one of them was always checking up on her, pulling her over for random crap, etc. She once got an absolutely unhinged midnight phone call from him because one of his buddies reported a man staying in her house. It was her brother. Fudging cops. He was well liked by the other cops, had a lot of tenure, and even had some sort of commendation. There was nothing she could do but move and buy a new car. First update, wow, I'm glad she left that butthole. Second update, oh, he would have killed her. He might still. A major cause of escalation is when the victim tries to leave. I don't think she realizes at how much risk she is right now. Hearing she went back to the house and met him in person had my eyes popping out of my head. I hope to God she doesn't make that mistake again. I can totally see a scenario where he lures her back to the house by agreeing to sign the divorce papers or any sentimental/important things, only to end up as a true crime story. Her having no friends or family is very worrying. The only place to notice her missing will be work. I hope they'll have support systems in place, especially after the manager and supervisor she directly reported to lost their life to DV. Our next post is titled, "Am I the a-hole for giving my daughter a better present than my son?" Our son is 22 and our daughter is 26. She bought a house in July. We know that moving into a new home will always come with unexpected costs right after you've probably depleted most of your funds. So for Christmas, we gave her $4,000. Our son we gave a few different gifts, totaling somewhere around $800. Our daughter had to work Christmas, but we did Christmas on the 26th, and she stayed with us for the holidays from then until yesterday. Our son still lives with us. And today he told us both that he didn't want to say anything while his sister was here, but his feelings were hurt by the disparity in the value of the gifts. We explained that the gifts we got him were tailored to his interests, but his sister had just passed a big life milestone where money is more important to her right now than sentiment. He said that it's still hurtful because it feels like we are more proud of her than we are of him. My wife got really frustrated when he said that and asked why he would choose the least charitable interpretation of our actions. He said that's just how he felt and that he couldn't control it. I said that we didn't give her money because we were more proud, but because we had experience being new homeowners and knowing that something always breaks in that first 6 months and that it's always expensive. He said that was all fine and good, but it still hurt to get a worse present and feel like an afterthought. My wife asked if he'd expected us to get him $4,000 worth of gifts, and he said no, but he expected the gifts between him and his sister to be equal. My wife said that's the same thing, and my son said that it isn't. He said that we could have given her the monetary equivalent of what we gave him. I told him that it isn't really fair for him to decide how much we spend on someone else's gift, and furthermore, cash is less personal than gifts, so giving her a cash equivalent of what he got would be her getting the worse gift. He said that we weren't listening to him, just justifying. My wife said that we didn't need to justify anything and that he was being entitled. And at that point, he said that he didn't want to talk unless everyone was civil, and then he went to his room. He skipped lunch, which is breakfast for him today, and when he left for work, he didn't say goodbye, even though I was right by the door. My wife is irritated, and my son is clearly resenting us. I can't really decide if we're in the wrong here. On the one hand, we should be able to give our money to whoever we want, but on the other hand, I never want to hurt my son's feelings. Were we wrong? In the comments, you're the a-hole for doing this at Christmas. I am the youngest of 4 siblings. My oldest sister is 10 years older than me, so we definitely reached milestones at different times. Things like wedding money, housewarming gifts and money, graduation gifts obviously came at different times for each of us and were not tied to group holidays like Christmas. You could have given your daughter an $800 check or gift on Christmas and $3,200 for closing on the house at a different time and setting, and then you could tell your son, "We will be so excited to give you a gift of money to help you out when you buy your first home." Instead, now it is a very disproportional Christmas gift, which is sure to raise some jealousy. Edit. My judgment is very light, and you seem like very generous parents who want to help both of your kids get ahead in life. I definitely don't think you owe your son more now than an explanation and an apology for timing and reaction to his concerns. In the future, I would just keep shared gift opening times in kind for both kids, and stick to milestone gifts timed with the milestone. Edit. I'm also getting a lot of rent-free comments about the son. From OP's comment, it seems like the daughter lived at home until the house purchase to save up money, and they have no issues with the son living at home now and want the same opportunity for him, so I don't really see it as an applicable factor in the judgment. Also, there was a clear invalidation of the son's feelings. He sounded like he was being really respectful and brought up valid points as to why he was feeling a certain way. Instead of being open about the whole situation, you started gaslighting. It's a good way to stop your kid from wanting to approach you about things in the future. You're the a-hole. This was the big sticking point for me. Don't you want your son to feel comfortable coming to talk to you when he has a problem in the future? Is son going to feel comfortable talking about his feelings and issues with mum and dad when mum immediately starts attacking him? Also, and this is just the suspicious butthole in me, but mum got real defensive and came out attacking hard when she wasn't even called out. He was just expressing his feelings. Her response was not proportionate, the point where she doth protest too much. Not the a-hole. I feel like people on here hate favoritism so much that they think that you have to treat your kids equally every second of their lives. The fact is, when children are different ages / at different places in life, they'll be going through different milestones at different times. For example, if one of your children had gotten their license that year and you got them a car for Christmas, that doesn't mean that you need to spend a car's worth of money on your other child that Christmas. That would be ridiculous. As long as you treat the kids the same in the long run and help them out similarly for these milestones, it's okay for there to be a little bit of disparity every once in a while. And now, onto the update. A couple of days ago, I posted elsewhere about a conversation my wife and I had with our son. People reacted very strongly, and I wanted to let everyone know what happened next, but that isn't permitted where I originally posted. I still wanted to get it off my chest, so this seemed an appropriate place. We sat down with our son again to talk. Things started out similar to yesterday, but then he asked if we wished he didn't live at home anymore. My wife and I assured him that nothing could be less true, and he said it feels like we are waiting for him to move out. He said his sister moved out at 21, and he's 22 now, so he feels like we are waiting for him to leave. I said we had no control over when his sister left, and asked what we did specifically to make him feel that way. He said it just did. At this point, my wife became frustrated and asked if he considered our feelings. Our son asked what she meant, and she pointed out that he never said thank you for his presents. He said that he liked them, and my wife said that that wasn't the same as thanks, and pointed out that she and I said thank you for ours, but he didn't say thank you for his. At this point, they were both frustrated, so I asked if we could all take a minute. My son thanked us for his presents, which was nice. My wife said that our son was asking if we valued his presence in our lives, but she wanted to know if he valued ours in his, or if he was just using us for free housing. Our son started crying, which felt awful to see. He said that he did value us, but that he felt like he could never catch up to us. I told him, don't try to catch up to us. We had a 2-decade head start, and you'll exhaust yourself if you try to do that. Just go at your own pace. Our son then asked how we would feel if he is never successful like his sister is. I asked him, "Why do you think that your sister is successful and you aren't? She bought a house, but that's not everything in life. She did that for herself because she wanted it, not to reach an arbitrary metric of success. All that matters is if you are happy in life." Our son was quiet for a bit and then admitted that he wasn't happy. My wife asked what would make him happy, and he said that he didn't know. I asked if there was anything specific making him unhappy, and he said his job. He said that he hates working swing shift and feels tired all the time. I then said, "Okay, quit your job or go to part-time and work 2 6-hour shifts a week if you're worried about a gap in your resume." He asked if we would be disappointed if he quit, and my wife said we will never be disappointed in him for trying to find his happiness. I said younger siblings look up to older ones and try to copy them sometimes. That was my brother, and when I was younger too, but you aren't your sister. This isn't a race, and you aren't on a time limit. You don't have to find your dream job or move out by a specific date. Just find what will make you happy. He said he would talk to his supervisor today about switching to part-time or taking a leave of absence. I hope that it goes well, because I don't want him to continue to feel dragged down by work. I don't think this situation is resolved because there are hurt feelings on both sides, but I do think that we made progress. In the comments, "OP, you seem to want to resolve the situation, which is great, but you need to understand that your wife and your son are 2 different people, and you can't pander to your wife's emotional responses if you want to get to the heart of the problem. You and your wife sound exactly like my parents. They do their best to give me what I need to meet my basic care needs, but when it comes to emotions, then it's all about how mum interprets things. It doesn't matter what I'm trying to convey, and that I'm trying to make sense of the world as an adult, rather than simply looking through the lens that my parents gave me. Offense will always be taken if I don't agree with my mother, and Dad will back her every step of the way because he doesn't want to make waves, even if he privately agrees with me. You know who I don't trust or go to when I'm experiencing difficulties in life? Mum and Dad. I know that they have and always will care about me, but they will consider things from their own perspective and will only consider how they're affected as the priority. That is what your wife is doing here. Your son has been shown a glaring disparity between how he and his sister are regarded, and your wife wants him to thank her for it. For an insult. You may not agree with those last couple of lines, but it wasn't your son who chose to make Christmas the difficult time that it was. I honestly don't blame you for giving your daughter a housewarming gift. She'll probably need it very soon, like you said, but the timing was abysmal, and you need to acknowledge that instead of painting your son as ungrateful. The biggest issue at hand here is your wife and you absolutely refused to see it. In both posts, pretty much all she did was try to make it about herself and her feelings and trying to deflect all of his own. From the comments I've seen that you post, all I've seen is you defending your wife after so many people calling her out, or you just being purposely obtuse if you get called out for your dismissive response to the original issue. Your son seems like he is struggling, maybe even depressed, and all your wife did was get frustrated and talk about herself. I guarantee that she doesn't think she did anything wrong either, and you wonder why he won't speak to either of you? Your wife is self-centered and you are her knight in shining armor because she can do no wrong. Unless you're going to open your eyes and actually listen to your child, don't bother with the updates. But it's okay because you say he can quit his job. Absolute Parents of the Year. Congratulations. My boyfriend is going to cry and I don't feel bad about it. In fact, I'm excited. I have been with my boyfriend for a little over 3 years now. I don't even think there are words to describe how I feel about him. My life changed in an unimaginable way when he entered it. There is no one on the planet that could ever make me feel the love that I feel when I look at him. I never thought that I would find someone who treats me this way or thinks that I even deserved a partner like him. He never fails to remind me that he thinks about, loves, and adores me. The other day, he made a passing comment that any experience he has ever had is always so much better if my presence is there. So, my boyfriend is a huge fan of Legos, like massive. He always buys smaller sets from Target and builds them in his free time to relax. Anytime we go to the mall, he always wants to walk around the Lego store just to marvel at the big sets. He can afford them, but he's the type not to spend money on himself. Every time we go in, I always catch him staring at the Star Wars Cantina set. He always talks about how one day he'll muster up the courage to put the $400 down and just fulfill his dream. But he won't have to do that. I just ordered it off the Legos website. Because I spent more than $150, I get a small Santa set. So what my plan is, I'm just going to gift him the Santa set, and when we are alone, I'm going to surprise him with the Cantina. He has done so much for me this year, and I can't imagine not giving this to him. So yeah, he's going to cry, but I'm excited about it, and thank you for listening. In the comments, I love that you encourage his hobby instead of calling it childish. Keep that man. And OP replies, of course, he is a very creative person, and it would be beyond cruel of me not to nourish and love that. It is one of my favorite things about him. Sometimes he'll get a set for himself and a set with 2 characters just so that we can build together because it makes him happy. My boyfriend is the same. He kinda likes the small sets, but he loves the big sets where the parts can move. I wish I had the money to do so. He has improved my life in so many ways, and he is always so supportive. We've been together for 6 months, but I just know that I want to spend my life with him. We are both studying and saving up for a semester abroad, so none of us could spend the money. Your story gives me hope to one day surprise him like that. I did, however, give him a trip to Legoland for his birthday, and he was very happy. And OP replies, I promise you, you will be able to. I always felt guilty because I'm the broke college student and won't make the money that he does for a while, if ever. His field is extremely lucrative, because I'm planning to get my doctorate, so I'll still be in school for a while, and he's the one who is already working full-time and makes really good money, so he's always getting me stuff even though I tell him not to. But all this is to say that I think sometimes, when you're broke, doing things like this, getting him the Lego set, and doing something like you, taking him to Legoland, means a lot. It shows that no matter how broke we are, their happiness is priceless, and we would do anything to make them feel it. Before he got a well-paying job and was flat broke applying for jobs after he graduated, he still attempted to make me feel special with the little he had. We will always do that for each other no matter how rich or poor. And now, onto the update. Hi all, sorry for not updating sooner. I know at least one of you was interested in one, but I wanted to enjoy the time with my boyfriend. One small thing to mention before getting into the update is that I ended up going back to the Lego store and buying the Boba Fett throne room to match the Cantina because I knew he wanted it, and well, why not? If some are interested, I may even post updates as he builds it. He already completed the Boba Fett throne room and has started the Cantina set. So, on to the updates. We did our normal gift giving with the family, and I ended up putting the throne room under the tree, which he lost his crap when he opened it because he's been talking about that set for a while. After everyone settled down after gift giving and started to eat and to watch Christmas movies, I asked him if he could help me to do something upstairs quickly. When we got upstairs, I told him I'd forgotten to put something under the tree, and when I pulled out the box from under the bed, he looked confused but started to unwrap it slowly. When he had pulled the paper back and saw the words, Mos Eisley Cantina, I don't know how to say that, he stopped moving for a few seconds because I don't think his brain was even fully registering what was in front of him at the time. His eyes started watering slightly, and he kept saying things like, "No way," before he started grinning and tearing all the paper away. He started hugging me and kept asking why I would spend so much money on him, and I told him that it was because I loved him and wanted him to be happy. He went through a mixture of jumping in excitement, hugging me, and crying for a few minutes. He kept talking about his plans to clear out the shelf behind him and put it on display in his work background. He then ended up surprising me by saying that he has also not put something under the tree because he wanted to have it be an intimate moment between the two of us. He went into the closet and was laughing about how he had put it on the top shelf because he knew that I wouldn't be able to reach it or see it, as I'm very short. When he came out, he was holding a tiny box, and when I opened it, there was a beautiful diamond necklace inside, which obviously made me cry like a baby. After he put it on me, we shared a nice moment together, kissing and hugging. I told him that I purposely saved the points I got from buying the sets so that he could get $50 off his next Lego set. He told me that he wanted to get me a set so he could spend the duration of building his set while I also built a set next to him. He has always really cherished building a set with me or building one at the same time as me. So over the weekend, we went to the Lego store, and despite me saying I was happy with a smaller set that I would build slowly so I wouldn't finish before him, because I felt bad since he bought me a literal diamond necklace, he insisted on getting me a big one and bought me the Bowser because he knows that it's one of my favorite characters. We had a great Christmas and have been having lots of fun having designated building time together. Thank you for all the sweet comments, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday as well. In the comments, my husband and I have been building Lego sets together for over 10 years. We joke that he proposed to me on the top of a Ferris wheel, but it was the Lego Ferris wheel. We built it together, and the ring was in the pieces. I was too enthralled with the building that I completely overlooked it, so he put it in one of the seats, and I found it while we were playing with it after. My husband also proposed to me via Legos. He knows that I love Legos and Lord of the Rings, so he bought the Helm's Deep set for me and hid the ring in a box for the Lego guys' capes and photoshopped me putting a ring on my finger in the Lego book as instructions. I don't think that I've ever happy cried so hard. Our next post is titled, Am I the a-hole for wanting hot food? So yesterday I went ice skating with my girlfriend. Tuesday is one of her days for dinner, so she made chicken salad. When I saw the chicken salad, I admit I made a face. She was like, "What? What's the problem?" I said that we were outside in the cold all afternoon, and I wasn't really in the mood for cold food. She said that we were inside, the heat is set to 74 degrees, and we were both wearing warm, dry clothes, so it was plenty warm enough to eat salad. I said sure, but I just wanted something warm to heat me up on the inside. And she said that that was ridiculous, because my internal temperature is in the 90s and my insides are plenty hot. At this point, we were going in circles, so I said that I was just going to heat up some soup and told her to go ahead and start eating, and I'd be back in a few minutes. When I came out of the kitchen with my soup, she was clearly upset, and she asked how I would feel if she refused to eat what I made tomorrow, which is today. I said I won't care, and she said that that was BS because it's rude to turn your nose up at something that someone made for you. Was I the butthole for not wanting cold salad after being cold all day? In the comments, why didn't you make soup to go with your chicken salad? Why make a face? Making a face at something is pretty effing rude. You're the a-hole. You are not an a-hole because you didn't want to eat it. You're the a-hole because of the way that you handled it. Right? Geez, babe, this looks great. That can of tomato soup you have would go great with it. I'm gonna heat it up. Would you like a bowl? It's not like OP had to cook it from scratch or have it delivered. Soup and sandwich is a pretty popular combo. It doesn't even have to be that indirect. I'm going to pair some soup with this to help me warm up is direct, easy, and not dismissive and thoughtless like making a face is. Learn how to communicate like an adult instead of a child, OP. So much this. OP isn't a butthole for wanting the soup, he's the butthole for making it an issue instead of simply talking to his wife without adding something. It's funny how reading about an event after it occurs makes people think they would have come up with the perfect diplomatic wording before the conflict ever occurred to them. Nope, I would have come up with it before because I care a lot about my relationship and have put a lot of practice and research into learning how to communicate constructively. Relationships are a skill-based activity, and you can learn how to be better at them if you give half a crap. What kind of face do you believe OP made? A disgusted face? An angry face? A crestfallen face? A face that was something besides joyous? How long are you imagining that this face lasted? Because to me, making a face could be anything from an exaggerated sneer to a brief slip of disappointment before restoring the mask. I don't know if you are neurotypical, but maintaining a mask of the acceptable emotions to display can be exhausting. Occasionally, negative emotions slip through, and then many times society and neurotypical people pounce on the person for daring to not maintain their mask perfectly. Add to that people who have faced abuse where showing their true emotions is dangerous, so they're forced to walk on eggshells constantly, which is extremely unhealthy. Your entire argument is based on OP not walking delicately enough in his own home and not stuffing his own emotions down enough to protect his partner's emotions. You are infantilizing the partner here and actively discouraging healthy communication in a relationship. Exactly. which is why I'm going with not the a-hole. People really enjoy extrapolating the most out of low-stakes, lizard brain reactions, and this is a good example of a non-issue. OP doesn't need to work on anything. Why does this sub like to encourage doing the most? It's annoying. There are so many "you're the a-hole," but I mean, no. You didn't ask her to cook you something else, you made it for yourself. Not the a-hole. It sounds like you guys cook together often enough that wanting something different than the other for a meal shouldn't be a big deal. If my husband doesn't want what I make him, he makes something else. That's normal. The "you're the a-holes" are for making a face and generally being unappreciative when it would have been so easy to say, "Thank you for dinner," and also, "I'm feeling chilled, so I'm going to heat myself up some soup to sip on." If he had said that and she got mad, then she would be the a-hole. I just feel like when people are in a relationship, they are more open with each other, hence the reaction. Yes, it's kind of rude, but there's nothing wrong with being disappointed with a certain dish that he wasn't in the mood for. Sometimes when I cook for my family and it was just something that they ate, they're most probably going to be a little disappointed since they just had it. And now, on to the update. No longer cooking for my girlfriend. Wednesday, after I served the plates, my girlfriend said she didn't want pasta and was going to make a salad. I was pretty sure she was going to do this, and it didn't bother me. I waited for her to come back to start eating, and when she sat down, I tried to talk to her about her day. She asked if I was trying to make a point, and I asked what she meant. She asked if I cared that she wasn't going to eat what I made. I said that I didn't, and would have it for lunch. She got frustrated, focused on her salad, and just wouldn't engage with me. After dinner, I said that we shouldn't make dinner for each other anymore. She asked why I thought that, and I said that it's clear that she gets upset when she makes food for someone and they don't eat it, and it would be better for us just to make separate meals so we each know that we will get what we want and no one's feelings would be hurt. She said it wasn't okay for me to make a unilateral decision about our relationship. I said that I wasn't, but I didn't want to cook for her anymore or have her cook for me if it was going to make her upset. We kind of went round and round on it until the conversation petered out. She texted me at work Thursday that she was going to make salmon. I decided that if she tried to cook for me, I would just let her so she'd feel like she won one over me and we'd draw a line under this. She ended up making salmon only for herself, which I was surprised by because I was expecting her to try to convince me to have some. I made myself a quick omelette and I sat down with her. She then asked if I was upset that she didn't cook for me, and I said no. Again, she accused me of making a point. She asked if I was going to cook for her on Friday, and I said no, and she was put out. Friday, she was upset that I made only enough curry for one person and called me greedy. At this point, I'm over it all, so I just ignored her. In the comments, "This is stupid, man. Just put your ego aside and hash it out. It is not worth deteriorating a relationship over." I mean, the girlfriend is pretty immature too. She's tried to make him angry on several occasions now rather than just having a conversation. First, she waited until he made a meal, then said she was going to have a salad, and when he didn't get upset, she flat out asked him if it annoyed him that she didn't want the food that he made. Then she texted him that she's making salmon, implying that she'll be cooking dinner, but then only makes it for herself, and again she asks if it upset him. She is just as much an a-hole as him. I don't see how this relationship will last. I don't get why he got voted the a-hole on the first post. Maybe making a face was too much, but he made what he craved himself, and she ate the dinner that she made. I don't understand her over-the-top reaction afterwards. If it was something that kept happening, I get it, but once in a while, you're allowed to crave something else from what's on the table. Just make it, and the rest is leftovers that they both can have later. The salmon thing was petty and kinda stupid. Like if you have a stocked fridge and pantry and a set of hands, it's not rocket science to scramble a dinner in 15 minutes. I don't understand what she was trying to prove. She's hurt because he didn't understand why she felt rejected, so she wants to show him how it feels. And she doesn't believe that he doesn't care. He needs to sit down with her and tell her that he really does not care, and she can't expect him to read her mind. But that he does care whether she is hurt, which is why they need to discuss food choices. Quote, so she wants to show him how it feels. It really is the crappy, immature way to communicate. Hey, what you did really sucked and hurt my feelings. Can you try to see from my perspective why it looks that way? But that takes vulnerability. Punishing your partner is more emotionally satisfying if you are immature and just want to win an argument. You can stick to your guns. You'll lose the relationship, but if it's really worth it to you, keep doing what you're doing. But you do realize that this isn't about the food at all, right? You hurt her feelings, and you showed zero remorse. She's trying to repeat your actions to you so that you can empathize with where she is coming from. Instead, you're choosing to go out of your way to keep making separate meals so you can pretend those feelings weren't valid. And you were rude. You should have apologized. Couples share meals. Maybe not every meal, but most when they're in the same location. So you can keep stubbornly making separate meals, which is obviously not what she wants, but you won't stay a couple. Mostly because it emphasizes on a daily basis how little you care about her feelings. But hey, you do you. So you're saying that when you have your feelings hurt, the legitimate course of action in your mind is to repeatedly try and hurt someone else so they can empathize with you? That's kind of messed up. No, it's not the best way to handle the situation at all, but it's what she's doing. But since she's not the one on here asking for advice, I'll give it to this guy. They've got to communicate, and it should start with his apology. Our next post is titled, "My Wife is Dead. The best Christmas present I could have gotten." At the beginning of 2022, I caught my wife having an affair with one of her exes. Our marriage wasn't perfect. I was not the perfect husband, I will admit, but I did my best. I put effort into the entire 5 years we were together. I put my all into the relationship. For her, I could not say the same. I was forced to confront the reality of who she truly was shortly after I caught her. She illegally evicted me from our shared home, lied to the police to try and get me arrested, tried to get me fired from my job, and tried to turn all of my friends against me. Some of these succeeded, while others did not. She has made my life a living hell since the day I asked her for a divorce and has planted her heels into the ground over our separation to try and drain all my finances and emotional strength from me. The only upside is we have no kids for her to use as weapons, but I soon found out that her policy of strict birth control with me did not extend to her suitor as he got her pregnant 5 months ago. I thought maybe this would help speed along the divorce, but it only rallied her in her efforts to destroy me. On Christmas Eve, my wife and her suitor went to a party where both of them got drunk. I find this fact terrible as all her friends knew that she was pregnant as well. Her suitor drove them home, a mistake that would cost them both their lives. In the state that I live in, our divorce is now considered to never have even started. I will be able to claim her life insurance policy for myself and move back into my home. Her parents called me up distraught yesterday, acting as if last year never had happened, and offered their full support to my funeral preparations for her. My confusion here was beyond belief, but the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when it comes to my wife. I told them that if they want a funeral, it was coming out of their pockets. I will pay for her to be cremated and deliver her ashes to them in the cheapest urn offered if they desire. They called me horrible and tried to guilt me about her life insurance, but after only 4 minutes on the phone with them, I hung up and blocked every one of her family's numbers. I'm going to be taking a few extra days off work to move into my house over the next week. I've already made arrangements to have her stuff hauled off, so my home will be an empty canvas to start my life anew. I don't know if there is a God or if this was just karma, but I truly believe now that I have come out on the other side of the storm. In the comments, make sure to block all her scumbag friends as well. Have her crap delivered to her parents' house, and then live well. Sue the guy's car insurance for loss of life. More cha-ching for your pain and suffering. Correct, and if they are still in the same auto policy, his own UIM coverage will be writing him a check. Just don't lie and pretend you have huge pain and suffering. Remember, pigs get fat, but hogs get slaughtered. I really hope that they were the only ones involved in the car accident. Selfish assholes, it sounds like. OP replies, I won't elaborate any further, but they were the only lives taken. Their own families will be the only ones affected beyond a simple car repair bill, thankfully. You know, I'd sell the house and move away, just as a safety measure. Don't let your guard down, because her family may try something. OP, in the event that she gave her parents the keys, change the locks on the house. OP says, her family is many things I despised. Cowards are the main theme. I already changed the locks on the house, and the chances of them trying much is not high in my opinion. I'm keeping my eye out though, and setting up cameras around the property tomorrow. I only wish to sleep in my home right now. I only want to wake up in the house that I was kicked out of. Selling the house will be a choice that I make once I do that. Damn bro, lucky you. Enjoy the new chapter. And OP says, thank you friend. I would suggest you send her things to her parents' home instead of just hauling them off. It would be kind to leave grieving family with the things that belonged to her. I suggest this not because they are good or deserving people, but because you want to start your new life out on the best foot possible by doing a good thing. You're getting rid of them anyway. OP replies, you're right. I don't like them, but they do deserve her things if they want them. I'll unblock her mum and offer to make arrangements to deliver her stuff wherever she wants. If she wants it all or only certain things, I'll eat the cost and deliver it to her. I'm already paying to have it hauled and trashed, so no point in caring where it goes. You might just want to tell the mum when the stuff will be delivered rather than letting her set the schedule. The latter just gives her one more potential way to F with you. Her daughter died. Let her have her belongings. They are still people. Just because you were cheated on doesn't make you free of being an awful person as well. And now onto the update. I have decided to elaborate on a few common threads that I see in this post here, as responding to all the comments would be too much. Firstly, some are judging me for the way that I'm reacting to the death of 3 people. You're right, it is not normal, nor is it healthy. I feel no emotions towards my ex at this moment. All my hatred, resentment, and regret evaporated when I learned of her death. I feel nothing but relief right now. This void has slowly consumed me over the past few days. I feel numb, like I'm dreaming, like what happened is not real. This woman made my life a living hell for over a year. She set out to destroy me and would not stop until she did. I do not like the fact that I feel this way over the death of 3 people, but that's not a box that I feel ready to unpack at this moment. Secondly, I have reached out to my ex's mum today, and things are much more civil as of now. I'll pay the hauling company to move her stuff into one of their storage units, and they can figure out the rest. Her mother revealed to me that they cannot afford to host a funeral for my ex. I am 100% the legal beneficiary of her life insurance. Despite my past hatred for her family, I told her mother I will give them a small amount from her life insurance so they can have a service and arrange burial logistics for her. This is contingent on us cutting ties after, and I will not be involved any further in her funeral. I will still be talking to a lawyer. Lastly, I am not going to elaborate further except the only lives lost was hers, her suitor, and their unborn child. Some are saying that I should sell the house. Right now, I only want to return to my home. The details of where I end up, either there or somewhere else over the rainbow, are yet to be determined. I do not know what life holds for me, or for any of us. This event happened, maybe for a reason, or maybe the universe has no logic at all. This gift put an end to a period of my life that sent me to the brink of destruction. It's morbid to think that the death of 3 people was what pulled me to the other side alive. It's interesting how quick it can all change or end. And in the comments, I don't remember why, but I was saying to my friend last night that you don't have to be sad that someone has died. If someone is making your life terrible, you're allowed to be relieved when they can't do that anymore. I don't know why he was attacked for not feeling grief or sadness. There are some people who are so cruel to you that you just simply cannot care anymore. OP wasn't jumping around in joy that the cheating wife is no more, just felt like a weight has been lifted from his shoulder. Ideally, you feel incredible pain when you lose a loved one, but this was not the situation. The reality is that this guy surely mourned the wife that he once knew before she ever died. There is little left for him to grieve over at this point. Exactly. As I noted in another post, it's almost like losing an elderly person to dementia. Yes, bad analogy, but hear me out. They slowly fade. The person you knew is gone. You grieve along the way. Your grief is real, it's just not all at once. OP already grieved for his wife. The person that he loved and married was already gone to him. He had been through that grief, and was now simply just suffering due to her existence. As someone who has been harassed excessively and had my life turned to hell for more than 7 years, I completely understand his feelings here. I would rejoice if this person died, no joke. I know it's horrible, perhaps morally corrupt to feel like that about another human being, but damn, the relief of finally being free from them would be all overshadowing. Sure, OP should see a therapist, definitely, but there is nothing abnormal about his reaction. When my husband gingerly approached me to tell me my abuser had died, my first reaction was to throw my hands up and yell, "Thank fudging God." That's the only thing I've thanked him for in a long while. That night was the most free that I felt in a long time. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it never did. Am I the a-hole for blasting Disney music? Hello, I, 16 female, have an older brother, 19 male, who is one of those prank YouTubers and TikTokers. He's been doing this kind of content since 2017, first on YouTube, and then expanding to TikTok for short form around 2020. He's decently popular with children and makes some pretty good money from it. It's annoying for me, and I hate it. As his little sister, I'm constantly having a camera shoved in my face, even when I'm busy. He's pranked me by pretending to delete my school projects off my laptop, throwing out my homework and study material, and he once fabricated a fake report card that he gave to my tech-illiterate parents, which got me grounded for a month, even after I proved that my grades are good, because they never go back on their punishments. He has also come to my work to surprise me and prank me, which has gotten me in trouble with my manager until they moved me to working in the back and not up front with customers because he would just come in so much. With my money, I recently bought a Bluetooth speaker, and whenever I see him with his stupid camera, I blast whatever Disney music I can. Let It Go, We Don't Talk About Bruno, anything I can because Disney is vicious with copyright and the footage is useless. He's tried talking to me before about it, usually on camera, to work out our issue, which means me stopping so that he can go back to making money off pranking me. Because I'm apparently very popular with his audience, he's been slowly losing views and followers, which he's blaming me and my speaker for. My parents are taking his side, as he is providing for us and that he is the golden child. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? And edit, please stop telling me to expose him or make a call-out post and exposing him. I don't and will not make a permanent social media account anywhere, so that isn't possible. In the comments, not the a-hole. He's harassing you against your consent. If he can't make views without harassing you, then he's not really making the money himself, is he? Tell your parents that you can't go back on a punishment either, not the a-hole. This is the way. Remember that report card prank and subsequent punishment? You love and respect your wonderful parents and are following in their footsteps and tradition. It's tough love and it hurts you to do it, but you must follow through out of love for your brother. You have a massively dysfunctional family if your 19-year-old brother's TikToks are providing for your family. Your parents suck and your brother sucks. As soon as you're 18, find a way to move out and be on your own. And OP replies, I am. I have a job so I can save money, and I have some friends who also want to move out at 18, and we plan to find an apartment to live in together. My parents are trying their best. They are immigrants, and me and my brother are first generation. Before his channel, our family struggled a lot, so they see his pranks as something to endure so that we don't return to how we were before. My brother sucks, my parents are doing their best even if it's misguided. Based on your other comments, it sounds like the pranks is something for you to endure and not them. If your parents are off limits and yet they continue to reap the benefits of your brother's success, then you have every right to be off limits as well. This isn't something that is applying equally to your parents, and it's unreasonable for it to be something that you solely bear the burden of. Keep blasting that music and protect that speaker. And OP replies, when I was 11 to 12, I did like being in videos quite a lot until it got too much and the pranks got crueler, and since I used to love being in videos, my opinion now doesn't matter apparently. And yes, I will. It's a cheap speaker that I always have with me, and I have spares hidden in my room in case my brother does destroy one of them. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with that. You're a person and you're allowed to have your opinions change, even if the pranks hadn't gotten crueler. Unless he pays you money for being in it, he can shut the F up, not the a-hole, and your bro should prank his parents. And OP replies, my payment is living in the house that he bought, and his viewers got tired of him pranking our parents in 2018, and they did tell him that if he didn't stop, they would kick him out. So they're off limits, but not me because better me than them. Your parents should be protecting you. And now, onto the update. I didn't expect my post to blow up like it did, but I thought that everyone would want to know that I'm now safe. First, those who thought that my brother would try and destroy my speaker were right. He destroyed multiple, but I kept buying more as they were cheap, and I have a lot of money saved up for when I eventually move out. I also told my friend's mum everything. Before all of this, she knew that my brother made content online, which is why I always go to my friend's house and not the other way around. I practically live there anyway, so she very quickly agreed that I can stay until I turn 18. While packing my stuff, I started participating in pranks again to keep my brother and parents happy so they wouldn't be suspicious. I kept telling my brother about an epic prank I was planning, and a few clips of me talking about it were in videos, and fans got really hyped for it. The prank was me taking the last of the stuff that was still in my room and using a lot of printer paper and tape to write notes all over my walls, bed, desk, everywhere that said things along the lines of, "Have fun without me, I'm not coming back, I hate your pranks," and other comments. I doubt he'll post the video, but I like to imagine he turned purple seeing it all. I'm currently at my best friend's house, and we're working things out legally so I can stay without my parents claiming that I was kidnapped or anything. I'm also considering getting a restraining order against my brother, and am looking for a new job. Hopefully with better pay so he can't try to see me while I'm at work. I still won't be making any social media or exposing my brother. He can lose his fans on his own without my help, and I can stay anonymous and out of the public eye. Thank you everyone who gave me advice. I really appreciate it. In the comments, not the a-hole. You have the most amazing friend, who has awesome parents, who has rescued you from ongoing abuse and harassment from your brother. I'm sorry that your parents enabled your brother's harassment of you. You don't need them. You have a good head on your shoulders, and I hope all goes well for you now. You know what's going to happen without the sister. The parents will now be the ones being pranked. All of a sudden, the pranks won't be okay. Golden child no more. That's gonna be delicious. OP, I'm so glad that you were safely out. Keep being awesome. The more you went on, the more your family sounds like a cult. I'm glad you escaped. Seriously, his pranks, which they absolutely are not, caused his sister to run screaming from the whole family. How the hell OP's parents let that slide is ridiculous. Good riddance. They lost a family member, and the brother will lose views without his prime target being available. What a bunch of a-holes. If it's anything like my step-family, the boy is always the golden child, and the girl is simply tolerated or exploited as unpaid domestic labor. Good on you, OP, for getting out of there. Our next post is titled, "Am I the a-hole for being hurt that my wife won't allow me to see the birth of our baby and asking for some space?" My wife is 8 months pregnant with our first kid, and she's been finalizing her birth plan. She included me in the process, and I did my best to research and understand it. I went with her to see various doulas, picked a hospital together, established emergency plans, etc. I assumed I would be there for the birth, but she told me she didn't want me to see our daughter being born. She only wants her mother there, and I could only come in once it's done to see the baby. It hurt like hell because I was obviously very excited about it. I asked why, and she just said that she'd be more comfortable that way. I said, okay, and I told her that I'll let her do whatever makes her comfortable, and I'll be on board with it, but that I'm very much hurt and will need some space for a few days to take it in. I slept in the guest room and left before she woke up for work, and she's been blowing up my phone with texts about how it's unfair to punish her for doing what's best for the baby. She called, and she was crying, and telling me that I'm putting so much stress on a pregnant woman for no reason, and that I'm a butthole for that. I don't think that needing space for a few days is wrong of me, and I'm just asking her to let me take in what's happening. I can't pretend to be happy about missing the birth of our baby. She is so angry, but I'm wondering if I'm being a dick. In the comments, not the a-hole. She's allowed to choose whoever she wants in the room, and you're allowed to take a day to sort your feelings. You didn't abandon her. You took space to organize your thoughts. Sometimes it's best to be quiet for a bit instead of saying something mean or not thought out. I'm wondering if she psyched herself out and is worried that the blood, moaning, possible pooping, and just all of that will turn you off. Some women think, he can't see me like this. I'm a mum of 2, and I didn't care who saw me like that. I just wanted my kids healthy and out. And edit, I do mean not the a-hole. Her blowing up his phone and calling him an a-hole is uncalled for. I have been pregnant twice and birthed twice. Pregnancy is not an excuse to call your partner names and to blow up their phone. He said that he needed space and time to collect his thoughts. He didn't leave the family home, he didn't run to his parents, and he did not call an ex-partner. He slept in an extra room and went to work. Ah, yes. Some women fear that they will no longer be attractive to their husbands once they've seen the gory part of childbirth. Maybe check with her what's driving her decision without pushing for a change, just to understand, and if it's apprehension about this, ask if it would be alright if you stayed near her head and not watch her poop in the blood. If she's still not comfortable, it's understandable for you to be upset, but please understand that no matter how grown up we are, sometimes when we're scared, we just want our mummies. I understand that missing the birth is a huge thing, but my husband had to miss it too. We had to go for emergency C-sec, and because of COVID restrictions, no one was allowed in the operating theater. And then our kid was in NICU for 3 days, and neither of us could hold him. It's been 2 years since, and every day there is something to marvel at. You will have years and years of those special moments. All the best for the roller coaster of parenting. So true. I made my husband promise that he wouldn't look down there. He obviously did, but he looks at me like I'm some kind of superhero now. He couldn't believe how calm and relaxed I was. It fully depends on the man, but some develop an admiration after. OP, not the a-hole. You do what is best for you that day. Childbirth is not easy, and you need the support system that you feel most comfortable with. Not the a-hole. You're allowed space. But I want to add this. My husband was told from so many people not to be there for the birth or look because it will ruin sex for him forever. So he was a little bit worried. He was there, but he made a point of not looking for the first one. The second one, things changed really fast, and he had to run back to the room as fast as possible to be there, and came in just as I was delivering, and he said that he saw everything and that it wasn't that bad. My point is, it's possible maybe people are feeding your wife these same stories, and it's made her insecure and worried. There is a lot of pressure on women to always remain sexy for their husbands. Maybe ask her if she's insecure. I don't know, just some thoughts. The concept that seeing your wife in that condition ruins sex both is extremely childish and is devaluing of the woman, since it makes her existence for him all about sex primarily. Pathetic that so many people parrot those sentiments to justify being crappy, unsupportive spouses. And now, on to the update. Thank you all for your input and advice. Update 1. My wife had the baby, and they are both healthy. I asked her on her due date if she still didn't want me to be there, and she said she wasn't sure. She was very stressed during labor, and I could tell that she was really anxious, so I did my best to comfort her, and I didn't ask. She did ask me to leave when it was time to push, and I came back when our daughter was born. I didn't catch her, but I got to cut the cord, and I held her first, which I am very grateful for. Things were okay with my wife for a while, until she dismissed how I felt about missing the birth, and said that I was making a big deal out of a couple of minutes. I then found out the reason she excluded me was because she was scared that I would stop being attracted to her. I kinda lost it, and I regret it, but I was sleep deprived, and I told her that I was disappointed in her as a mother, and she put her vanity before our kid, and before me. My wife then asked for marriage counseling, and we're on a wait list for a first appointment. We have been very cold towards one another when we're alone, and we will probably fight soon again. I know it's not the best way to be when we have a newborn, but I can't help but blame her for this situation. I will be going back to work soon, so I'm hoping the distance that work gives me from her will help me calm down and gather the strength to be more mature about it all. Update 2. Wife and I separated for a couple of months, but decided to work on our marriage. Bigger issues rose to the surface in marriage counseling, and wife did apologize for keeping me out of the delivery room, although she affirmed in the same sentence that if we have a second child, she would ask me to stay out again. She just will not trust me to not lose attraction to her. I had never realized just how deeply insecure she is about her looks and how it affects her every part of her daily life. She's a pretty woman, and she's always acted very confident, but it was mostly just a facade that completely crumbled with the pregnancy. We ran into some issues with breastfeeding related to that, where she would eat very little to lose the pregnancy weight, and it caused her to produce less milk, consequently stressing her and the baby out more. I begged her to postpone her diet until our baby is a little bit older, but it was so important for her to lose weight first. I tried supporting her, but I was going through my own struggles, and I couldn't understand how she could put that over the health of our baby. We are determined to make our marriage work, and I'm going to do my best to understand her struggles with self-image. I've come to accept that seeing the birth of any child that I have with her just will not be possible. In the comments, this is a tough one. Diet culture is a disease, and you're married to a long-term case. Try this one on for size. What if you replace attractiveness and vanity and how attractive she is with her control over her body? She didn't want you in the room for the birth because she wanted to retain a sliver of control over her body and how it's seen. She doesn't want to eat enough to breastfeed easily because she wants to regain control over how her body is shaped. Does that give you a little more insight? A lot of times in pregnancy and birth and feeding, the pregnant person needs some kind of control over a process that often seems to happen without their input. And this is in loving families with wanted pregnancies. Very few people get pregnant and then have it go exactly how they wanted, expected, and hoped. No amount of dieting, exercise, or anything else will change what a pregnancy does to a body. And if her pride is in how she looks and the control she has over how she looks, going through a year or more in which that entire foundation crumbles has to be really rough. No a-holes here. I think you are both victims of an image-obsessed culture that neither of you will ever fully unlearn. Good luck in the times ahead. Old age comes for us all. Women are told that men are traumatized by seeing birth, and they will never look at your lady bits the same again. It's a huge thing in some circles that men should be men and stay at the head of the bed if he dares enter the room. It's easy to blame someone for how they respond to societal BS instead of keeping the blame on the societal BS, which feels much less alterable than individual behavior. Thank you for shifting the focus where it belongs. Personally, my heart aches for women who see again and again just how quick men can lash out at women because they suddenly see that bodies aren't solely for their own pleasure. In my opinion, this is what OP should be heartbroken about as well. I also think that OP should do some introspection about how his views of her body might be just as unhealthy and objectifying as how she views it herself. Whilst she's caught up in her body's values in terms of attractiveness, he's reducing her body's value to that of a life giver to their child. He has decided that her wants, fears, and anxiety was secondary to watching his child be born. His concern about her dieting are focused on the consequences for the child. Those concerns are not invalid, of course, but it's also dehumanizing as hell to be treated as just a vessel for another person's life, and can't be helping the anxiety that she has around her self-image and self-worth. He is exacerbating the problem, knowingly or not. Our next post is titled, "Am I the a-hole for kicking my friend out of my vacation house in a foreign country?" English is not my first language, so please excuse my poor grammar. My family owns property in a tropical destination that is very popular this time of the year. My friends and I, all girls in our early 20s, have been talking about going to my parents' house for years, and this January was finally the season that everything was aligning in our favor. An acquaintance of mine, Jessica, who is a part of a larger group of friends, heard about the upcoming trip and asked to join us. I was reluctant at first, but she kept publicly insisting on it by saying that visiting this place was one of her childhood dreams, and it put me in an awkward position to say no. We then add her to our travel group chat and go over everything that was already decided on our itinerary and just how much money we were planning on spending on this trip. She seemed excited about it and didn't want to change anything. Great. Unfortunately, things started to go south the moment she arrived here. Jessica bought a different flight from everyone else and would arrive at 3 a.m. I told her she could either get a taxi to my house or wait at the airport until 10 a.m. when I would drive by to pick everyone else up. She was not happy with that and was very passive-aggressive for the rest of the day. She then started to complain about our itinerary, how everywhere we picked was too expensive, and she felt excluded and judged by the people there. We tried to compromise and did a few touristy things with her, but when we started getting ready to go to a beach club yesterday, she threw a fit. I reminded her that she knew about all of this before buying tickets and that she wasn't forced to join us. She could just stay at home and eat the foods that my parents kindly stocked for us and walk around the city center. When we come back home, I am flooded with messages from our mutual friends asking why I'm being so mean to poor Jessica. Apparently, she took it to social media and created a narrative that she's a victim and that we are bullies. I was sick of it. We had a fight where she called me terrible things. I wasn't a perfect angel either, to be honest, and it ended with her being kicked out. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Absolutely not the a-hole. And it's time to tell the real truth to everyone ganging up on you. She created her own problems and tried to blame you. She can just get herself back home. Not the a-hole. I am so glad that this is a story where people don't put up with obnoxious, selfish bullcrap. Kudos to you. It is always best to trust your gut feeling, but after all is said and done, I think you handled this like a champ. Not the a-hole. From your post, it sounds like you tried to accommodate her. She really has poor form inviting herself on a trip that she couldn't afford. She should be grateful that she had a nice place to stay and that there was food for everyone. She looks like the fool making this a public issue, airing the dirty laundry. I would remain classy, and if it really becomes an issue, recommend a good book on etiquette. Enjoy the rest of your vacation. She invited herself on a vacation and then complained that the itinerary was too expensive for her. I can't fathom getting a flight for 3 a.m. arrival apart from the group and expecting to have someone other than a paid service available for my immediate pickup. She's self-absorbed and should have looked into the cost of excursions and activities to see which ones she could afford before booking her red-eye flight. Not the a-hole. I'm going to assume that the argument escalated into her calling you some nasty names, which is frankly unacceptable for a guest to do to her host. She was treating your parents' house as if it was a VRBO that just happened to be free and wanted all of your guests to be her wingmen on her dream vacation. It is not clear if she posted for sympathy or to have your mutual friends pressure you to do things her way. If you kicked her out, essentially for airing her feelings on Facebook, then you're a bit the a-hole, but if she was using it to bully you into doing her agenda, then she's even more a-hole. And now, onto the update. So even though I was mainly judged not the a-hole, I felt bad about the way that I handled it. Like many of you pointed out, it is my fault for allowing her to come in the first place. This country, and specifically this specific location, is considered safe, but it's not idiot-proof. Something bad could have happened, and I would have blamed myself for it. I decided to be the bigger person, and I contacted Jessica earlier today after dropping my friends off at the airport. Our talk went really well. She explained that in the beginning she was looking forward to our plans. She wanted to experience the glitz and glamour of our destination. In her head, she would go to the beach clubs with us. Guys would offer to buy her drinks and ask her out to dinner so she wouldn't have to pay for any of it. Unfortunately, reality didn't play out like that, and she started to grow resentful whenever one of us would get male attention. The final straw was when I wouldn't let her borrow a wetsuit from me when we went scuba diving. She wouldn't fit in any of our extras, and I didn't want them to stretch or break. She said that it triggered her imposter syndrome and body dysmorphia, so she didn't want to go to hotspots with us as it was affecting her mental health. I told her that while I understand where she's coming from, I hope she realizes that my friends and I are not in the wrong for sticking to our original itinerary and not catering to her insecurities. We didn't bully her once, and slandering us on social media for her own issues was unacceptable and unhinged. She genuinely apologized for her behavior, and she knew that she was in the wrong. I also apologized for kicking her out in the heat of our fight and offered to pay for her hotel and any fees she had to pay in order to anticipate her flight. She thanked me and said that she would request the payment on a money app. Everything was going well until I saw the request for 5,000 euros. What? I texted her asking if this is the right amount, and she said yes. I asked for receipts, and she didn't have any. I asked for bank statements or any sort of proof. She got angry and went back to being her rude, irrational self. I blocked her everywhere, and I won't talk to her ever again. In the comments, well, this took a turn at the end. You were clearly way better off without this person. They have shown that they will not take any accountability for their own a-hole behavior. Well, that's not entirely true. She will totally feign accountability for financial gain. Shocked that she didn't scream emotional distress for the excessive amount. Chick never should have gone on a vacation that she knew she couldn't afford. Point blank, sounds like a bagpacker who wants others to pay their way. Her planning on getting male attention to afford some stuff is about the most short-sighted plan that I have ever heard of. I've known a few people who this worked out for. They'd pick a destination and bring cash as a backup, but usually didn't pay for a single meal or drink while they were there. But both the men and women I knew who did this were stunning and extremely charismatic. I found out about it because one of them was complaining about how she always had to buy her own meals and drinks in Utah. California, New York, Mexico, or Brazil, she ate and drank on her looks, but in Utah, she paid for every meal. I'm not sure what's up with this state. They're too busy being Mormons and oppressing women. Oh god. Not the a-hole, again. $5,000 is probably the cost of her flight and all expenses for her failed dream vacay. Overall, you come across as empathetic, generous, and balanced, i.e., a truly good friend. Dude, we just did a 3-person, 11-day vacation overseas from where we live for $4,000. I can't imagine spending €5,000 on one person for what sounds like a shorter trip. Considering that she didn't even have to pay for food and lodging, as all of this was provided by OP's parents, the $5,000 are either a first-class flight or just totally made up. Am I the a-hole for banning my 8-year-old nephew from my place until my sister replaces my stuff that my nephew lost or broke? I, 30 female, practically raised my 8-year-old nephew and I love him as my own. My sister, 28 female, used to work afar, so she had to leave him in my or my mother's care when he was a baby. 3 years ago, she found a job and a house nearby, but my nephew still spends his weekdays in my place and only goes to my sister's place during the weekends. My nephew tends to be careless with everyone's stuff, but he's especially careless with mine. I think because he's closest to me and has no restrictions. He's already broken 2 phones, 2 eyeglasses, 1 laptop, and so many other things. I just chalk it up to him being a kid and therefore never get mad. But when he turned 8, I started teaching him about boundaries. That when I tell him something is hands-off, then he must not play with it. A concept he is really having a hard time with. Yesterday, I saw him fiddling with the contact lenses I just bought the other day. I told him it's a hands-off because I will need to wear it for an office party later and that I wouldn't have any backup because he just broke my eyeglasses. An hour before the party, all I have to do is wear my contact lenses, and voila, they're missing. When I asked my nephew, he admitted to have dropped it. We looked for it to no avail, and I ended up not being able to go to the office party. This is the only time I got really mad. I got mad that he didn't listen to me for the nth time, and that he didn't even bother picking it up after dropping it, because to me, that shows his lack of respect to me. Sure, I can buy a new pair again, just like what I've done several times in the past, but I really wanted to teach him a lesson about boundaries and respect, and in my perspective, the best way to do that is to show him the consequences. So I dropped him to his mom afterwards and told both of them that he will be banned from my place until they replace either the contact lenses that he lost or the eyeglasses that he broke. My sister does not agree with my method, said I'm being petty for getting mad over it and she would rather spend money on food. My mother thinks that I'm being harsh considering it will be Christmas soon and that my nephew is still too young to understand what I'm trying to teach him. I felt I was right, but now I'm not sure. Am I the a-hole for banning my 8-year-old nephew to teach him about consequences, considering that it will be Christmas soon? In the comments, everyone sucks here. First off, 8 years old is old enough to understand the basics of what is a toy and what is not. Someone has failed in teaching him this. And while I understand you are not the parent, but you're an adult and you know his track record, and you should have taken steps to just taken the lenses away from him. His mother should also take responsibility, and if not pay all, then some of the values of what he breaks. and the kid desperately needs to learn that there are consequences to his actions, although banning him is a bit overkill because neither the mother nor you have the guts to give him a form of punishment, like a timeout corner, no game time, do some extra chores. You haven't mentioned anything in the way of punishment, only a command word that apparently is not enforced or punished, so he will never truly learn. This isn't the case of spilling some milk. He is physically destructive, and it will become a problem eventually if it's not addressed sooner rather than later. OP replies, I haven't tried extra chores or a timeout corner, but I have grounded him and restricted game time in the past. His mother and I have talked to him about his behavior before, and he started being more careful with others' stuff, just not mine. That's how I concluded that it could be because we are too close, he doesn't believe I could get mad at him, so he continues breaking and losing my stuff. I can accept being the butthole, but most of the "you're the a-hole" comments are just stating their opinions without any recommendation. I mean, fine. So you think I did poor in raising the kid, but what do you suggest I do specifically in this case? Well, have a serious talk with him. Perhaps talk to his mother beforehand and agree on what to say and what punishment to have, where you explaining to him that you are hurt, that he is breaking your stuff, and this will not be acceptable going forward. Say something to the effect of, he is a young man now and must be more aware of his strength, so he has to be more careful. However, should he break something expensive because of carelessness, he will have to help pay it back. This is what my mum had my brother do. His allowance went towards fixing a car door for months. He got around €10 that my mum showed him the bill and put in a box marked car door and marked how much of it was in it each time. I think this went on for a couple of months. If he doesn't get an allowance but you can afford it, maybe start doing some physical activity with him. Say that if he manages to not break anything when visiting, once a week or twice a month, you will take him to some sort of activity center, climbing, bowling, whatever. Rewards are just as important as punishments. He's a growing boy. He might just enjoy testing his strengths. If after all of this he continues to regularly break your stuff, make it very clear that he will not be allowed to visit for X amount of time, and that the time will be determined on if it was intentional, in a fit of rage for example, and expensiveness, if he breaks glasses or like PCs. Just a few suggestions at least. And perhaps make sure that he understands being banned from the apartment does not equal you not wanting to see him. He could just be a clumsy child like me, and some of this is genuine accidents. And him feeling like you don't like him because of that doesn't seem fair. OP replies, thanks. I think I'll make him do chores at home to pay back what he lost. His only chore at home is to wash his own plate, so making him do more might send a clearer message. I already take him to the mall, playground, and resort every other week because that's just how we bond. I don't think he'll see it as a reward. Everyone sucks here. You are all doing a pretty poor job of raising this child. He should have been taught not to mess with other people's stuff as soon as he was able to get it. You said you've let things go until he was 8, which is way too long. No wonder he thinks it's fine to break stuff, if it's always been fine. You and your sister and your mother and any other responsible adult in the kid's life need to get your act together. You're the asshole for waiting until he's 8 years old to begin teaching him boundaries. He's gotten away with everything until now, and then you punish him with taking away his weekdays home? That's really not fair. The punishment is too harsh. Let him come back, but have him work out his debt for the broken things by doing housework for you. He needs to be raised properly. And now, on to the update. Thank you to all who gave their feedback. I just talked to my nephew, and he agreed to write a whole-page essay to reflect on his actions, and to wash the plates at home for 2 weeks to pay for what he lost. I agree that banning him from my place might be too harsh, but to clarify, it isn't like I didn't try to talk to him or discipline gently when he was younger. His habit has mellowed down towards other people's stuff, but not towards mine, which I conclude is because of his total lack of fear of me. I am not fond of punishments or discipline by fear because I grew up in that kind of environment. I think I want to be his security blanket because I didn't have one growing up, but it can be a struggle to balance things out. I appreciate all of those who gave their advice. In the comments, if they think that 8 is too young to learn basic boundaries, no wonder the kid behaves like that. Of course Mum thinks the kid is too young. She's never around her kid except to babysit on weekends. My daughter understood "not yours" meant not to take or touch an item from the age of 1. She's 3 now and never disturbs any of our electronics, consoles, TVs, phones, etc. She is loved and protected practically to the point of coddling, but she understands boundaries. I honestly do not understand how people allow it to get to this stage. Our next post is titled, "My married next-door neighbor is cheating on her husband with at least 2 different guys during the day while he's at work. What would you do?" Me and my boyfriend moved into our place almost 3 years ago, and sometime last year, a new couple in their mid-30s moved in directly next door. Terraced, 2-level houses, so we share a wall. We both have 2 upstairs bedrooms, and it quickly became apparent that they chose the room that shares a wall with our bedroom, as we would often hear them having sex at night. No porn-star level moaning or anything like that, but you can easily make out the movement of the bed and slapping of flesh on flesh. So, enough to be a distraction. We both found it funny at first, but often they would be at it in the very early hours of the morning, especially on weekends, and often multiple times back-to-back with breaks between. It really started to interrupt our sleeping schedule, so we decided just to move rooms, and now our old bedroom is my work-from-home office. While they were both working from home and I was in my new office room, I'd still hear them at it during the day every now and then, but I'd just put on my headphones and try to ignore it. No big deal, and good on them for having such an active sex life. Once the husband went back to the office working, I was no longer having to reach for my headphones nearly as often, so thought that would be the end of it. A few weeks after him going back to work, however, the midday sex noises starting up again, even more enthusiastic and frequent than before, which was odd as her husband's car was not parked outside. I also noticed a pattern of hearing their doorbell go shortly before the sex started, and after going full nosy neighbor mode and peeking through our blinds almost every day, I noticed that a guy was parking his van just up the road, popping in next door for an hour of fun, and then heading back out. Not only that, but I've even spotted a different guy turning up every now and then. I've been cheated on before, albeit in a much more casual relationship when I was younger, and think it's one of the most disrespectful and hurtful things that someone can do to another person. It makes me so sad for her husband, and hearing her go at it with these guys on an almost daily basis is getting me increasingly annoyed and angry. My boyfriend says I just need to ignore it, and it's not worth getting caught up in these things. I kind of agree, but I also feel like making some kind of anonymous tip-off to let her husband know somehow. What do you guys think? And P.S., she was already halfway through her second round with one of the guys this afternoon when I started typing this. In the comments, I would ordinarily say keep out of it, but if it's disturbing your day or sleep, you could ask the husband to keep the midday hanky-panky down. You're not explicitly mentioning the cheating that way, but he'll go off and find out. Either that, or she'll knock the cheating on the head. Besides, for all you know, they might have an open relationship or something. What would I do about the cheating? Nothing. It is zero of my business. Maybe this is the deal. Maybe he knows. Maybe he's bonking 17 people at work. Maybe he's a violent craphole and will stab her in the neck when he finds out. You know nothing at all about their relationship. You are not their friends or family, and you have no business messing in it. That said, if someone next door is having sex loud enough to bother you then, regardless if it's an affair, a monogamous couple, or a wanker, you can say something. It's super embarrassing, but I would be very tempted to go around the daytime and say, "This is really embarrassing, but I can hear you having sex in the daytime, and I'd rather not." I guess if you wanted to explode things, you could go around in the evening when he's there and say the same thing. But to be honest, it kinda sounds like you'd like their evening sex to be quieter too, so perhaps don't risk replacing that with these screaming rows about infidelity. My first wife cheated on me. I just wish someone had the respect for me to tell me before I figured it out way down the road. All the people saying none of your business is one of the things I hate the most about this country. Everybody is just indifferent to everything and are too scared to do anything. The husband deserves to know, so write an anonymous email or letter, add him with a fake account on Facebook, message on his work email. None of it has to come back to you, but he deserves to know. And I would consider it your responsibility to tell him once you found out. F cheaters. And now, on to the update. Thanks for the wide range of replies, everyone. For those saying mind my own business, I get that to an extent, but it kind of becomes my business when it's distracting me from work on a daily basis. There has been a few times that I've had calls while it's been going on, and I've just had to pray that the noise cancelling from my mic is doing its job and to be extra quick on the mute button when I'm not talking. A lot is saying to separate the two issues, which seems like good advice. After all, it's the noise that's impacting me personally. Even if it was her and her husband, that would still be a major annoyance for me. In fact, even though we've moved rooms, we can still hear them most nights and often early mornings too. I honestly don't know how she can manage so much sex. Admittedly, the cheating aspect, assuming it's not some kind of open relationship thing they have going on, which seems unlikely, but yes, I suppose it is possible, is adding to my emotional response for sure. But ultimately, that's between them, not me. As much as I empathize with the husband, again, assuming he's unaware, I do agree with a lot of the comments here that it's not my place to out her and not worth being in any way involved with the potential fallout. My boyfriend also shares this view. Reporting to council/police just doesn't seem like an option. I mean, it is, but it would be obvious that it was us who complained, and neither of us want to go down that path. I think I'll have to try to pluck up the courage and maybe try to bring it up casually the next time I see her on her own and just hope for the best. On the bright side, their neighbor on the other side is an older guy who is practically deaf, so if they at least swapped rooms like we did, there's less chance of the neighbors hearing them at it. And now, onto the final update. Well, turns out there was a twist after all. After all my moaning, my boyfriend got talking to the guy out the back over the weekend and, as sensitively and politely as possible, brought up the subject of the noise, and well, long story short, they are adult content creators. Obviously, he never mentioned anything about the guys showing up, but we think it's probably safe to assume he is well aware. The husband was also very apologetic and admitted they were both worried about noise, but figured it must not be that bad as we'd never mentioned anything all this time and that they tend to not hear much from us. It turns out the wife is now doing this as her main job and quit her previous job months ago, and they already planned on turning their spare room into their studio, which, if happens, should mean much less noise for us. Kudos to all of you that called me out for being so presumptuous that she was cheating. Lesson learned, not to jump to conclusions. In the comments, I can't believe it took that long to say anything. Even just a quick knock on the wall to make it known they can be heard? Seriously? Based on the spelling, OP might be British, and banging on the wall, while effective, is a fairly American solution. Source: I married into a British family. Best way to discreetly handle this? Catch the husband alone and tell him that you don't want to be a bother, but you'd like it if him and his wife could refrain from loud intercourse during the middle of the day. Now he knows all he needs to make sure his wife isn't cheating and keeps the noise down. But why even bother hinting at it though? Just say the truth. Hey, I've seen some other guys come over while you're away and sex noises after he enters the house. I want to make sure that you know this is happening. Where's the problem in the truth? You've made no assumptions, only observations. No one would ever be mad at you for this, except the wife, which the husband shouldn't rat you out. If the husband knows already, then he will not care. If he doesn't, he will be very happy to find out.